Council meeting in executive session. As we return to the bench, we are going to adjourn out of executive session, take about a 5-minute or less break, and then reconvene for our regular council meeting. So just so y'all know that no decisions are made and no votes are taken in executive session. I would stand for a motion to adjourn out of this.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. And all in favor, aye. 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 So we're officially adjourned, and we'll be right back to start our council. Good evening. I'm sorry that we're starting a little bit late tonight. We have a good meeting, and we have a full meeting ahead of us. So we are going to begin this evening with the invocation. And Pastor John Watts, thank you so much for coming. Pastor Watts is with the First United Methodist Church, and you're going to open us in prayer. And do you mind leading us in the pledge also? Awesome. Thank you so much.
Let's pray. Oh God, we come before you as we begin this meeting tonight. And first of all, we just want to pause as our minds and our hearts go to other cities in this great nation, distant cities, Dayton, Ohio, El Paso, Texas, Gilroy, California, as we together just feel a small bit of the pain and the sorrow and the agony that those cities are going through right now. And we think of those mayors and those city councils and police and fire and first responders and churches and most of all those who have suffered directly. And we just want to pause for a moment and just pray for your grace to be there. We know that wonderful as this city is, we're not immune from tragic things like that. But and we also know that we have our own challenges here in this city. But we also are well aware we have so many blessings. And so we thank you, God, for this city that we're privileged to live in. We're thankful for our mayor, our city council, all those who care enough about our city to be here tonight. We know that we have much to celebrate, but we also know that we have much work to do, which is always the case. So always we thank you for the blessings. Always we seek your guidance for the challenges. And always we praise you, the source of life and love and all that is good. In the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor Watts, thank you so much. We appreciate it. So let's begin the meeting, and we'll begin with roll call.
Rodriguez?
Here.
Bruner?
Here.
Vogel?
Here.
Levi?
Present.
Haverfield?
Here.
Skog?
Here.
So the first item on the agenda is the consent, it's the consent agenda, but I'll stop by saying, do we have any proposed amendments to the agenda that I might not be aware of? Seeing none, I would stand for a motion to approve our consent agenda as submitted.
So moved. Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Bruner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Vogeboom?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
The next item on the agenda are proclamations, and we do not have any proclamations this evening. And so we'll move to the next item on the agenda, and this is for Nampa residents wishing to speak for 3 minutes, have the opportunity to do so. And let's see, we have a few people that are already on the list, and then we'll move on to the next group of people. So we're going to start this evening with Brock Lister. And Brock, if you would like to come forward, just had the opportunity to meet Brock a couple minutes ago and present him with a special certificate. And rather than me sharing what he did, Brock, would you tell us a little bit about what you have accomplished?
Yes, of course. So, I did my Eagle Scout project in like late June, and it was like painting an M60 Patton Series tank. So it's a pretty old tank. It was used during like the Vietnam War around that time. It was brought to Nampa in 1996. So I chose this project. And it took a lot of work. It took 4 days of labor to do it, and I got many people from the community, friends, family, people from church, and we all came together. We had to wash it, sand it, put tape in drop cloths. That's where we didn't want the paint to be, and then we had to stencil it all. And that's the day that I was painting it. That's the man on the top he was the person that I hired to paint it, and I'm just helping him out. So we both painted it, and that was an 8-hour process. So it was a long time.
Brock, that is amazing. I don't think it's just anybody that says, hey, I'm going to take on a project like that. And I'm sure your parents are very proud of you. That is awesome.
So Mayor, what's the warranty? What's the guarantee number of years before the next scout has to do it? I'm just fooling with you, but I'm sure you did a great job. It's going to last a long time, right?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And also, Chief Huff is our next police officer right here. Not fireman, police officer.
Chief Carpenter's not in the room.
I know he's not. But also, I wanted to thank Lowe's. They had a picture of Lowe's there standing with you, and tell them about what they did.
So Lowe's was very kind. They donated almost all of the supplies, like over $200 worth of supplies, respirators, paint suits, all the tape and drop cloths needed for it. And the National Guard, they donated all of the paint. So it's very helpful from the National Guard and Lowe's.
All right, Mayor, I have a question. How did you come up with this idea? What other things were you thinking of, maybe?
So I didn't really know what to choose, so I just called Nampa Parks and Rec, and they were just giving me ideas. So she named off a few, and I didn't really want to do any of them. Then she named the tank, and I was like, okay, I have to do that.
Okay, the tank sounded cool.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So credit also to Nampa Parks and Rec for assisting in that phone call, being part of that process. Very cool.
They were very helpful. They made sure I had all the supplies I needed. They were very helpful also. They made sure I had access to the tank, all of that.
That's important, access to the tank. So I'm hearing that there's other projects that they suggested. So other fellow friends of yours who are looking to maybe do a project, they can call Nampa Parks and Rec. Sounds like there's some projects. Okay, excellent. Great to hear it.
So Mayor, are you officially an Eagle Scout then now?
No, I have a few more requirements to finish up. Then I'll become.
You're going to do it though, aren't you?
Yeah.
All right, good for you. Congratulations.
Brock, could you bring your folks up too as well?
Yeah.
The good news is this is live streamed, and so you can go, and we've got a great front live stream. So you can capture it, yeah.
So we wanted to hear from your parents as well. Mr. Lister, you're in the National Guard presently, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
And you've been deployed how many times too?
3 times. 3 times over the last 10 years or so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have other children too?
Yeah, we have 4 children. He's the youngest.
Well, congratulations.
You should be very proud.
Yes. And we as a community are too. That is a beautiful tank. What a great job. That is awesome.
It's a lot different now.
Give it 10 more years.
Well, Brock, you did it. This was great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. The next individual and organization on the agenda is Teresa Laird. Teresa, thank you for coming up and sharing with us what you're going to share. And Teresa, you're so appreciated. I tell you, the work that you do in our community is, it's evident. Thank you for who you are and all the work that you do.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time, and all the city council members. Thank you so much for having us here today. I've brought along 2 very special ladies, Leanne and Tammy Kofed, Leanne Snyder, forgive me. And are we up and? We're really excited about this is our 3rd year doing the Nashville Tribute Band, having them come out and performing Redeemer. And we just want to share with you a few slides. We had it a little bit, a little nicer, but we didn't have the right way to connect. So we're good. This will be lovely. I'm going to let Tammy tell you a few things. She's really been boots on the ground, and then we've just been wonderful helpers. So.
Okay, well, awesome. This was just quickly, we'll give a quick summary of this event. The last time we did it was 2016, and as part of the benefit of this event, there was 22,000 pounds of food that was donated as part of the concert and some of the surrounding events. This year we expanded it, and we did a Feeding Children Everywhere event where 40,500 meal kits were assembled by volunteers in our community. and then those were added to food donations and distributed to local food banks and families. So we just have a few pictures of some of that event. And again, it was just a lot of fun, high energy. It just turned out really, really fun. And the next, part, we also hosted a celebration dinner where we had civic and church leaders from across the entire valley that came together just as friends and associates, discussing just, how the importance of faith-based members of our community and working together and making good things happen for the good people in our community. And there's Pastor Watts right there, actually. He and his beautiful wife, Helen, attended, and others. There's Tammy DeWeird from Meridian. So that was really, some of our artists that came to perform also came, and Marie Osmond there, and Alex Boyer, David Archuleta, Daniel Emmett, who is a finalist on America's Got Talent. So that was really nice, a really nice evening with members of our community. That one was Salvation Army. We've got from Napa area. And then as part of this big concert that was held on Saturday, the tickets were free, but we asked that those attending bring canned food donations and drop them off there. And there was a enormous outpouring. We had a total of 18,000 people attend the concerts between a 2 and a 7 o'clock show. And this is Neil Moore of the Nazarene Care House, the First Church of the Nazarene over there. He is an awesome member of your community and does so much good. He handled the food donations there and also the distribution from there. That was a lot of work, and he did a fantastic job. And then, of course, was the concert. We'll just go through some pictures there. Again, some pretty prominent and dedicated musicians who just really felt for the cause and also to help to come and feed the food banks. We had 2 80-member interfaith youth that did choir, that were a backup choir as part of the event as well. And then, just going through quickly, all of these pictures and information about the event is on the website, which is comeevents.org. And all of these photos are there. There were quite so many. Okay, and then the following Monday after the concert, members of your community and surrounding communities, again, Neil gathered over at the First Church of the Nazarene. Victor was nice enough to come and say a few words in representing the city of Nampa, as 20 food banks from throughout the valley came with their trucks and trailers, and 28,630 pounds of food, which is an astronomical number, really. Pallets and pallets and pallets full of food was sorted and distributed by members of the community, and made it to these 20 food banks, including several in the city of Nampa. And of course, Teresa, who is very involved, and Neil and Pastor Tom of the First Church, Tony, that's right, Pastor Tony from the First Church of the Nazarene gave a beautiful blessing over all of the food before it was distributed. So that was our report. We wanted to just thank the City of Nampa and make you aware of this great event and what happened here and how the community was benefited, not just by the food, but also from the relationships, not just between the churches. There were probably a dozen different denominations represented, but also the food banks, how sometimes there's a little bit of competition there too, who gets to benefit, and a little bit of competition there, and those walls also came down as they worked together to distribute and benefit from all of this food. So thank you for the opportunity to report. These 2 women were very involved in making it happen. And so if you have any questions for us?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was not available. Next time I want to be there. I would love to be there. And thank you for the work that you guys do. That is amazing. So thank you so much. Thank you. We have another group. It's the Treasure Valley Blue Star Mothers, and I think they have a presentation, possibly for Councilwoman Levi. Is that correct? Okay.
So I'm Sabina Rebel. I'm the current president of the Treasure Valley chapter of Blue Star Mothers of America. And Blue Star Mothers is a national organization that was chartered by Congress in 1960, but it's been around since World War II. I didn't know about it till my son was getting ready to go to Afghanistan. So there's a lot of people in Idaho that don't know that much about it. We all have children, sons and daughters who have served in the military or are currently serving. And we also have associate members. Those would be like the fathers, friends, anyone who would like to work with us. The Blue Star banner is the banner that was approved by the Department of Defense to be displayed. It's got to be really popular around World War II, and then it kind of waxed and waned. But people who have family members, close family members who serve in the military during a time of war or conflict can display these in their windows, and it signifies that they have someone serving. It's a white background with the red border and the stars in blue that signify how many people are serving. So this one is for Sandy Levi because she had 2 sons serving in the military. And when I met her, we talked a little bit. It was really, really loud, but we talked a little bit, and I found that out, so I would like to present her with one because that is one of the things that Blue Star Mothers does is present Blue Star banners. Sadly, we have occasion sometimes to present Gold Star ones, which is when their son or daughter paid the ultimate price, and then a smaller Gold Star is placed over the blue to signify that they have passed away. In the last 3 months, we have presented 2, sadly. Before that, it was 2013, so Idaho's doing really well. Some of the other things that Blue Star Mothers do is go out to funerals, welcomes homes, send-offs. We help out with events at Gowan Field and at Mountain Home. One of the things that we were mainly known for is to send care packages to deployed service members. So anyone with an APO, FPO address at no cost to their families or to the service member will send them a package. So if you know of anyone, hear of anyone, let us know. I think that's all we have. Oh. So this one is being presented for in honor of Benjamin Levi, the U.S. Air Force, and Isaac Levi, Coast Guard veteran. Just bring it up.
I also have some brochures and applications if anyone is interested in getting a little more information about our organization or would like to join.
And actually, if you would like to leave them at the back, could anyone actually that's here have one as they depart?
Definitely.
Thank you for these cards, but let's let our audience, if someone's interested, and then we will pick them up and get them back if there are any remaining. Could we do that? Thank you so much. This was so informative. I appreciate knowing about it, and thank you, and what an honor for Councilwoman Levi.
We are called Treasure Valley Chapter, so we cover the Treasure Valley, but since we're the only chapter in Idaho, we kind of cover Idaho whenever
For you.
there's a need.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'm just, so how many, you maybe said, how many members do you have?
Currently, I believe we have about 18 or 19, and that kind of goes in cycles too.
You said this started in 1960s.
Oh, the whole of Blue Star Mothers,
Yeah.
like national?
No.
Oh,
I'm just wondering how long, and maybe I missed it too.
Our
How
chapter-
long has your chapter been in
since
existence?
2009.
2009.
So actually, it's
10 years?
years. Yeah,
10
July
years.
31st. Yeah.
Mayor Kling, but also, the Blue Stars were commenced back in World War I, right? And that was when, during the war, the mothers were here working in the manufacturers and factories, and then when they would return, when their sons would return, some wouldn't. That's where that started. I mean, isn't that right?
It is. And they actually did find a huge Blue Star, Gold Star banner in the basement of St. John's Cathedral, I think.
Mhm.
They're trying to find the provenance for, and they think it was made during World War I.
Right, and at that time, the military was accepting 3 and 4 family members, brothers and sisters at that time, and that's when you'd have 3 or 4 of them die, then that's when that started. Yeah. So thank you. A little history there.
Thank you very much.
Thank
for the
you so
opportunity to
much.
present.
Thank you. So the next person listed on the agenda is Chris Schmier to speak on a non-agenda item, and thank you. We typically do have a 3-minute limit. I think we've gone over tonight, but we'll try to get back on track. And Chris, thank you so much. Please go ahead and give us your address and then the topic.
My address is 14404 North San Juan Avenue, Nampa, Idaho.
And how do you pronounce your last name?
Schmier.
Okay, perfect.
And topic is regarding Middleton Road, south of Smith Avenue. just south of the single exit coming in out from Mission Point subdivision along Middleton Road. That entire stretch on the west side of Middleton Road is, as I like to put it, being used as a used car lot. So that's the purpose why I'm here. Since May 5th, we've had 20 cars parked along that stretch on Mission Point property. In a 3-month period, we've had 20 cars parked there. And the last car was on July 6th. It would have been more cars if the neighborhood watch hadn't been actively patrolling and phoning in cars and trying to resolve the situation. I myself am the acting captain for the neighborhood watch of that subdivision. I'm also one of the board members for the HOA. So there's a few issues with this. One, many of the cars are parked illegally, block the view of the intersection where you exit from Mission Point or along Smith Avenue. It causes a visual nuisance. It creates an unsafe traffic pattern. Cars that stop to look at the used cars make U-turns cutting out into traffic. And so we've had a lot of near misses along there. It causes homeowners to have to call Nampa PD, code compliance, volunteer enforcement phone numbers, which creates extra work on Nampa departments. So as I presented all that, the one question I'd like for you guys to ask yourselves, what is the purpose of the right-of-way? Is it really to park your used cars there and treat it as a used car parking lot? So we've requested to have the HOA pay for signs to erect along the grassy area. It's still in the right-of-way because the right-of-way goes all the way up to the sidewalk in our grass. But we've asked to have signs placed that state what the city code is. And the departments here have, we feel like it's fallen upon deaf ears. They pretty much have said, we do not want to advocate no parking signs, and we have not asked for no parking signs. We asked for signs that state city code, and that's it. We feel that those signs, at minimum, would act as a deterrent and cause less cars to park along there, therefore decrease workload of Nampa public departments. So that's all I have.
Well, first of all, thank you for coming forward. And then, needless to say, we need to follow up, but I want to give council the opportunity to ask any questions. Does council have any questions?
I do. Chris, I pass by that location almost every day, and I thought it was the subdivisions that were selling those cars.
No,
It's not?
4 out of 5 people I have called don't even live there.
Oh, they don't?
No. Yeah, and most people have said, well, I saw other people park there. So it starts compounding and get worse and worse and worse. And it's been quite the headache. We have a lot of elderly people in our subdivision. They need to get out, go to doctor's appointments, and they've had near wrecks.
Well, they also park not diagonally, pointing toward the street, not parallel.
For the fog line, we're told call Nampa PD. That's illegal. Some of them are just in there. Some of them park on the grass, potentially breaking sprinkler heads, causing problems. We can't mow our grass. It's,
Well, I think one of the things that I have noticed as well is I did speak with another member of your Mission Point subdivision, that when they're exiting onto Middleton Road, that there's a site yes, that you can't see coming out.
Yeah, it
Right.
impairs vision.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say, right. So that's another issue that we should probably take a look at.
Yeah, that was one of my points I made in there. And I do have a USB drive with all sorts of photos of the cars parked, if you would like to have that.
Thank you. Councilman Scott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Fellow councilors, this isn't the time to get into discussion, or we could end up in past midnight tonight. But it is important that we address this, and the mayor's really good about having staff follow up afterwards, so let's do that.
So our staff is here, both from our transportation department, and then we'll also look at it from a code enforcement standpoint. If you would like to share that jump drive, I have staff at the back. Clay, we could grab those pictures and then give you your jump drive back.
You can have it.
And, okay, thank you. And then I just want to say thank you for having a Neighborhood Watch program. That is wonderful. Thank you for serving, because it's work. So your comments are not falling on deaf ears here. We will follow up with you, and we will get with both of our departments and determine how we can best resolve and support this issue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. The next person on the agenda is Terry. I think is it Lenigan? Is there a... That was the Star Mothers. Oh, that was you guys. Okay. And then Tammy, was that Star Mothers? So this is Tammy Kofio? That was you. Okay. So perfect. Yes, it did. You're right. So is there anyone else that had intended to speak for 3 minutes this evening on an agenda or non-agenda item that did not get signed up? Okay, seeing none. The next item on the agenda are mayor and council comments. And the only comment that I have, actually it was mentioned earlier, and thank you for doing so, had to do with the shootings that have taken place. And I did post, and it was interesting to see the number of comments from our community. I just last night decided to put a post on Facebook just saying that my heart was grieved today as I really considered the loss of life that took place this last weekend in Texas and Ohio. And then specifically in response to the shooting in El Paso, my comment is that hate crimes are unacceptable. And I'm saying this specific to the hate crimes related to the Hispanic community. 25% of our community in Nampa is Hispanic. And the Hispanic citizens in our community play a very key role in our community, and they're valued, and that they're welcome here. And I just communicated that. And the other thing I communicated, and I'm just communicating again here at City Council, is that I want our citizens to know that the City of Nampa is concerned for the safety and welfare of our citizens. I so appreciate our police department and Chief Huff, that's sitting right back here, because they work diligently and collaboratively with all of their agency partners to ensure that we have the best possible preventative and response measures in place. That is greatly appreciated. And then my last comment is, ultimately, we need to pray for God's covering and protection over the city of Nampa. So we have a great community here, and that I'm very thankful for. And I think that we're doing everything that we can to ensure the safety of our citizens. And so our hearts go out on behalf of that. Are there any other council comments this evening?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I appreciate your comments, and that is so sad. Racism can be overused word. Everybody's a racist if they disagree, and that's so wrong. But here, it really isn't enough to say that we are not racist as a community, but we are anti-racist, and I believe we're all that way up on this panel, and just want to affirm your comments as well.
Thank you very much. I agree.
Mayor, yesterday, my wife wanted to take her grandchildren to Walmart, and they did not want to go. And we told them that doesn't happen here. And so they were okay with it, but they really weren't. So, and actually it could happen here. So we all have to be careful, very careful. And thank you, Bruce, for your comments, and Mayor. That's what it's all about, is we have to take care of each other. And that's what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments from council, the next item on the agenda are agency and external communications, and we do not have any this evening, so we will move on to staff communications, and Tom Points.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. For Mr. Smear's comment, we'll take a look at that no parking zone. We'll make sure Jeff and I are looking at Google Earth. It looks like it's a landscaping area with no direct driveway access in there, which would be a pretty good candidate for no parking. So we'll go look at it in the site triangles and get back with you. And then I have two items written in the staff report there. The first one is from the clerk's office. So Nathan at the clerk's office sent us a nice note that we felt compelled to put in here. They said that we had no claims this year in our chip seal operation, so that we haven't We haven't really had that, so that's something to be proud of. We got they're starting to dial in with the chips and less claims. That's a really good thing. So that's something we're happy about. The next item is about the Middleton overpass. So ITD is widening from Nampa to Caldwell. So they'll need to take out the Middleton overpass because it's got piers and the future travel lanes. So we'll have to totally reconstruct that. They're going to come in and put in a structure similar to 11th Avenue. If you can visualize that one, overpass over by the golf course. It'll be a little bit wider than the existing today. The ITD, they don't pay for expanding the structure because to like a 5-lane facility, because it still functions in the design year, which is 2045, at a 2-lane facility. So they're putting back 2 lanes, a little bit wider structure to accommodate a sidewalk on the east side, and then a bike. So we can have bike lanes on both sides of it. So they offered to put in a foundation for us at a cost of $400,000. Our staff, transportation staff, is recommending not to do that at this time when the need, because we have lots of other priorities in the city for intersections within the city. And since this is going to function until 2045, we didn't feel like that was a worthwhile investment at the time. So I'll take any comments or questions about that.
And this is maybe just an educational question for ITD, but it seems like every time we expand the freeway or whatever the case is, the piers always have to be done away with. They haven't allowed for the expansion. Is ITD allowing for further expansion even after this, say 20 years from now? So the piers don't have to be totally redone again?
Yeah, Councilor Bruner, there'll be enough room to add. Well, they're putting in this configuration so they can get 3 lanes in both directions, and they'll be able to add additional lanes.
So there'll be added lanes beyond the 3 lanes. Okay. Because it seems like that hasn't always happened. So good news.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, thanks.
Appreciate it. Okay, so let's move on to new business. Our first item is item 5.1 on the agenda. This is an action item, and this is a resolution for the appropriation of funds for the FY20 budget and call for public hearing. Do we need anything on that other than just a motion to approve? Or do we need to read the resolution?
No, we've never had to read the resolution.
We don't need to read the resolution. So really, I would just stand for a motion to go ahead and call for the public hearing.
Mayor Kling, I will.
And the date of the public hearing is August 19th.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. You'll move that we appropriate the funds in the FY20 budget and call for the public hearing on August 18th.
Yes, exactly.
19th,
Thank you.
excuse me.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Bruner?
Yes.
Vogelboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Item 5.2 on the agenda is an action item. This is to accept a community wellness grant from the National Network of Libraries of Medicine in the amount of $91,943. This is a great grant. Claire, you are here, right? Is Claire here? Yeah. There you are. Oh, Beth is here.
So
do you have any questions? Do you want her to share? Because it's a great, it's awesome. It's in our packet.
it's in our packet,
Yeah.
right? What I read. Is there more than, okay. I will make the motion that we never heard of needing a motion to accept a grant, but let's do it.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Vogelboom?
Yes.
Bruner?
Yes.
Item 5.3 is the first reading of ordinance for naming a private street North Watermill Lane. This is an action item and requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, naming a new private lane, Watermill Lane.
So I would stand for
Make a motion to pass the previously read ordinance under suspension of rules.
Second.
discussion. Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Bruner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Vogelboom?
Yes.
Item 4 is also a first reading of ordinance for annexing a portion of the underlying irrigation district, and this is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, annexing a portion of the underlying irrigation district into the municipal irrigation district of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, and changing the boundaries thereof, and directing the city engineer to alter the use and area map accordingly.
And actually, 5.5 is to approve the summary of publication for the preceding ordinance, and they can be joined together, and I'm sorry I didn't mention that.
Mayor Kling, I'll make the
Yes.
motion to pass the preceding ordinance as read under suspension of rules, and also 5.5, allow the summary of publication.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Item 5.6 on the agenda is an action item. This is to authorize the mayor to sign a memorandum of understanding for regional irrigation pump station for Stella's Point subdivision.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Item 5.7 is an action item. This is to authorize U-turns on westbound Caldwell Boulevard approach at Karcher Road signal and to authorize the ITD staff to create and install the appropriate signage. Do you want Tom to present, or,
Yeah,
Please.
okay.
Okay.
I'd like to hear a little bit more.
so I guess it's Danny.
Danielle's going to present.
Wondering why that wasn't working. Mayor, council, the intersection we're talking about here is the intersection at Caldwell Boulevard and Karcher Road. The car wash sits right here. ITD, couple years ago, they installed, 2016, they installed medians along Caldwell Boulevard in this area. The Zupas there had requested ITD allow U-turns at that location. This happened probably 8 months or so ago. ITD worked with them to fund the installation of that signage. Our city code does not allow for U-turns unless specifically approved by city council. And so this would just be the process to make that change allowable so that they can install that signage for the business there for that request.
And I'm sure you've done discuss the safety issues surrounding the U-turn.
Yes, so back in 2016 when they installed the medians, they put a U-turn down at the signal at Lowe's and the Karcher Mall entrance. Has the same widths basically as this one. Does not appear that there's been an accident problem there. ITD, both of these roads are ITD's roads. They've done the analysis to verify the allowance of the U-turn.
Thank you. It certainly is challenging. If you miss turning at the light, you're stuck. So,
Mayor,
Yes.
Danielle, the only concern I had was with, this is one of the busiest intersections in Nampa, if not the busiest, right? Someone making a U-turn slows down the flow of traffic when we're trying to push as much traffic through. Am I wrong in thinking that, or is that just anecdotal?
Well, no, you're probably not wrong, but it's not a significant slowdown.
Okay.
We don't have to change any of the signal timing or any of that for this. The U-turns would be from this second left turn lane here and flip around. It happens during the same period as the left turns, and so it doesn't change the timing of it. It may change by one how many cars get through in that particular lane, but the other lane would still function the same.
Well, the other concern I have is those turning right onto Caldwell from Karcher, because that's backed up heavily as it is. So this would also affect the cars turning right to have to look
These
for.
cars here making that free right
Yes.
during that turn would have to yield to the U-turns, yes.
Okay, I'm not a big fan of making traffic worse on the busiest intersection in our city.
And at this point, I don't have an estimate of how many vehicles would make that U-turn. And so until we have that option, we won't know how many vehicles take that and whether or not then ITD may have to look at making modifications to the timing of that signal.
Mayor Kling, I was going to echo the same concern that the U-turn that's allowed at the Lowe's light doesn't have the type of traffic that is, that Rick was talking about, like the Karcher Road turning eastbound onto Nampa Caldwell Boulevard. So that is less of a concern to me. This one is more of a concern as to who has the right-of-way and the potential for impact, and that would definitely slow down traffic if there's an accident in the intersection. So right now, the traffic flows east-west or on a diagonal. This turnaround potential could cause more harm than good, but this is a ITD-controlled roadway, isn't it?
Correct. Both Karcher and the Boulevard are ITD-controlled roadways. The request came from them. The only reason it comes to us is because it's within our city.
So the liability, is that a liability they're shedding onto the city of Nampa by seeking our approval? They're the ones that basically, again, control that road system. So what liability do we assume if there is a major accident and the city's taken on the opinion to allow it when ITD is the one that really controls the road system?
I would defer to the city attorney.
I'm not sure exactly what that would look like, but I can check into that specific question. I very much doubt that any liability would pass the city of Nampa based on the action that's being requested here.
Before I can approve, then I would need to know that. And I meant to say it earlier. I wanted to give a shout out to our Nampa Police Department, but an individual was hitting a crosswalk in front of my office, and so that kind of just heightened my concern for the type of traffic generation we're getting in Nampa and pedestrian, obviously access to these crosswalks and who has right-of-way, who doesn't. The shout out I was going to give to the police department was there was a compliance officer on the scene before I could get out of my office to go render aid to the individual laying in the street. That's how quickly she was there. And then our police department, there was at least 6 officers that showed up within 2 minutes of that happening. Pretty traumatic to be a part of and to witness. And so I would need to know how the pedestrians are being protected in this arrangement and the potential liability that the city would be assuming, if any.
Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, as to the pedestrian movements, the left turn or the U-turns would happen during the left turn phase where the pedestrians do not have a walk signal. So these 2 lanes would be active, those 2 lanes would be active, and there would be no green light for the pedestrians that would be affected by that.
I think you've understand my concern.
I understand your concern.
All right, thank you.
So Mayor, a question. So it may just be my lack of driving ability, and my wife would probably second that. But the Karcher, when I had my Suburban, I could not make that turn without going on the curb. Has that been a challenge for anybody else, or is it, like I said, it just may be me? But you said, I thought I heard you say this is the same width, which as what that one is. If it's just not me, then I'm not going to approve this. If it's not going to be wider and you can make a proper turn, because talking about slowing down traffic, a couple of times when I tried that, I don't try it anymore, but I slowed down traffic.
Mayor, Councilman Brunner, the larger passenger vehicles do struggle to make that turn. A full-sized, F-250 or whatever does struggle to make that turn.
So it's just not me. It makes me feel a little better, but
it's not just.
Okay. Anyway, okay, that doesn't make sense to me, though, why engineering-wise, if we're going to do this, we don't make them wide enough for all vehicles. I'm not talking about semis here, so, anyway.
Mayor, Council, I'll just make a motion to reject action item 5.7, which seeks authorization for U-turns on Caldwell Road.
I was thinking that.
It's been moved.
He seconded it?
Yes.
Okay, so question.
Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I would say that just to table it until we can get further information be provided back to the council with the liability that I expressed and the concern for pedestrian crossover. I've seen people try to cross over from the opposite corner at the same time because that traffic stopped and they're trying to get across that section of street. And now you've got people that are trying to U-turn potentially where they would be, I don't know. It's just lost in the flow of everything that's happening there. So. I'd like some more information be provided to us.
Okay, Councilwoman Levi?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilman Haverfield. I was going to suggest the same thing. The other question that I had, and I'm not sure if I can ask it because it isn't directly related to the motion, but it is to the item, and I didn't get it in time. So I had a couple people not only approach me regarding the medians down Caldwell Boulevard, but also down 12th, and they told me that they would put my picture on their sign and ask me to run for president if I could get those medians knocked out of the road, because it's really taken a hit on the businesses. So to kind of segue on what the mayor was saying is, you know, when you cannot access those businesses without going way further than you need to. So I can understand why the U-turn needs to be there. But my actual question would be, is do we have statistics as to have those medians helped with any of the accidents, lower accident numbers or anything like that? Because they're definitely cutting into the businesses.
Mayor, Councilman Levi, I do not have those statistics here. I know, at least on the ones on 12th, we have looked at that, but I don't have that off the top of my head.
I would appreciate knowing that. Thank you.
Okay, it's a little different topic, but we will make note of that.
Yeah, my
Jeff,
motion,
and let's come back.
which
So-
was seconded, is just to reject it. And even if there's more data, it's going to slow traffic down. So that's why I made the motion. I'm not a fan of that.
Okay, so if Rick Hogaboam made the motion and Victor seconded it, and it sounds like you want to maintain your motion.
Yes.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Brunner?
And this is, if we say yes, it's in favor of rejecting this, correct?
Yes, this
Yeah.
would be rejecting it.
Yes.
Levi?
No.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboam?
Yes.
Okay.
And I will, Mayor Kling, I'll make a comment about, I was involved with the Stanton Optical that was designed on the opposite corner there. They were willing to place their building there because of the amount of visibility that intersection has, knowing that there is not an access lane back onto Nampa Caldwell Boulevard, right in only, nothing back out, but they were willing, because of that visibility, to have that location, because people will see, they know where they're at, and they'll find a way to get to them, and then they'll find a way to get back on the road system. So Zupas is no different. They have tremendous visibility there. We find our way there about 3 times a week, so it's not been a problem for my family.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item number 5.8 on the agenda is an action item. This is to authorize an all-way stop at Cherry Lane and 11th Avenue North intersection.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboam?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Very wise decision. Item number 5.9 is an action item. This is to reject the bid for Indian Creek Pathway Extension. This is Taffy to Peppermint, key number 2141 project.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboam?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
5.10 is an action item to authorize the mayor to sign the addendum to the state and local agreement with ITD for the Indian Creek Pathway Extension, Taffy to Peppermint, key number 2141.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboam?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Item 5.11 is an action item. This is to award the quote to Professional Construction Services and authorize the mayor to sign the contract for manhole and valve collar adjustments for FY19 in the amount of $29,650.
Mayor Kling.
Yes.
Question, we still call them manholes in Idaho, right?
And I knew that was coming.
To my knowledge, we do.
Good, it's not California yet.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Second.
Who seconded that? Bruce did. Thank you. Councilman Scoggie, excuse me. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes for manholes.
Hogaboam?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Did somebody wake him up or what?
I saw it in his eyes.
So we have one other action item under new business, but it will take us longer than 2 minutes, would be my guess. So I would ask the council, we can go ahead and do that, but we will be late moving into. Would you like to?
Please.
Okay. Councilman Skog?
Either way is fine.
Either way is fine? Okay, well, let's go ahead and then we'll be done with new business. So we put this on as an action item, but it's really a discussion of the liquor licensing for the sale of liquor, beer, and wine in the city of Nampa and their impact on the general welfare of the city of Nampa. And whether this is popular or unpopular, I'm going to take responsibility for it. The discussion surfaced, and it's surfacing regarding the number of just bars that we have in the downtown area. And with hearing that there's additional bars wanting to come in, it's how do we manage, and when are too many bars too many? And this is strictly related to bars. In the process of discussion, we learned some new things, and so I've asked Christy if she would come and share with us. She has created a map that you have in front of you, and I think she will put it up for us to see, because some of our issues were answered through our zoning map amendment, you know, what our zoning map allows. And so, Christy, thank you for walking the council through the requirements in a zone and our processes.
Absolutely. We'll try to zip through this as quick as we can. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Christy Watkins, City of Nampa Planning and Zoning Department. So I just wanted to start with just a couple of real quick items, just for your understanding, so you kind of understand how we look at these types of uses. So the definition of a restaurant is any premises other than a boarding house where meals are provided for compensation. In order to serve beer, wine, or liquor in a restaurant, liquor receipts shall constitute less than 40% of the gross receipts for food and liquor combined. Restaurants whose liquor receipts constitute 40% or more of gross receipts for liquor and food combined shall be classified as taverns, or, for our purposes, a bar. So that's how we look at these types of uses when we're doing CUP requirements or any of the liquor licensing that goes forward. So when someone comes in to talk to us, they have the option of going through a conceptual plan review meeting, which is where all the departments in the city come together to answer general building and site questions for these people. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. It's just an inquiry. They can do that. They don't have to do that. Usually at that time, we'll tell them, you know, the zoning that you're in would require a CUP or not. Then they would generally come in and apply for a building permit, where they would either get a tenant improvement, which is an interior remodel of the property, or a certificate of occupancy, which usually means that they're going from an existing use, which would be a bar, to an existing use, which would be a bar. So a certificate of occupancy doesn't really quite require much further action from the building department necessarily, but we are still required to do our zoning portion. The building department then takes that application and routes it to planning and zoning. At that time, we'll do a review of the address to determine what the zoning requirements are. So you can see there, little tiny type there. Those zones there all require a CUP for a standalone bar. The GBE, which is the Gateway Business Entertainment District, is a permitted use for a standalone bar. And then, of course, restaurants are allowed uses when alcohol is only 40% of their overall sales. So, like I said, in the past, the practice has been that if it's a bar to a bar, we have not required a conditional use permit, because it's kind of already there. Everyone knows it's a bar. We haven't had any complaints about it, so we generally will just let that use continue as a grandfathered right. If it is an allowed use, then we don't generally make any kind of a comment on it. Going forward, staff will be entering that information into our EnerGov permitting program so that we have some history on the property, and then any discussions that were had with the applicant. If a CUP is required, the permit will be put on hold. The CUP will be processed through Planning and Zoning, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then the permit for occupancy of the space and the alcohol license should not be issued until the CUP is approved through that commission. So a conditional use permit is heard by Planning and Zoning only. You guys do not see those. this is the code section that we refer to when we're doing conditional use permits. The definition would be certain types of uses require special consideration prior to their being permitted in a particular district. The reason for special consideration involves, among other things, the size of the area required for the full development of such uses, the nature of the traffic problems incidental to the operation, the effect such uses have on any adjoining land uses, and on the growth and development of the community as a whole. No building permit shall be issued when a CUP is required until that CUP process is complete. And then this is the evaluation criteria that we use when we're looking at a conditional use permit, and these are put in our conclusions of law in the staff report as it goes forward to planning and zoning. So they're asked to apply the request against this criteria. I can read it if you want me to. It's pretty lengthy.
Mayor Kling?
Yes.
Can I ask a quick question? Is there a proximity restriction for bars around schools and churches?
There is, it's 300 feet.
Where is that at? Is that in
That's
that?
city code.
No, is that in, well,
That's
so you
the-
haven't,
Yeah, that's not in our planning and zoning ordinances.
Okay.
It's actually in the city code for the licensing, isn't it?
Is that a state?
It's a
It's a
state-
state
Thank you.
statute.
It's a state
Yeah, it's a state statute.
so there is a proximity alert for that? Okay. Now, CUPs just go before planning and zoning. What about variance requests?
Variance requests come to you.
Right.
But bars don't generally fall into that category. Unless
well,
they're
the-
asking for setback requirements or reduced parking.
That's true. I thought it was interesting that the general business or I guess around the Idaho Center doesn't require any sensitivity.
So it's interesting that you brought that up, Councilman Haverfield. The parcel that's actually indicated on the map that you have in front of you, and I'll have that up here in just a second, is just strictly the Idaho Center parcel. It doesn't include any other property in that area. So that parcel falls into the Gateway Business Entertainment Zone.
Okay.
All by itself. And so I believe, it's my interpretation that that's allowed due to the special events and stuff that they have there where they may be serving alcohol for specific things that are going on. And so they might have little pop-up vendors that are there for whatever reason. And so then it just saves them from having to get a conditional use permit for every event that they have.
So Mayor, Civic Center doesn't have.
They are not in an entertainment zone. They are in the downtown village zone.
So in just a minute, why don't we go ahead and let Christy finish her presentation, because she's going to answer some of our questions, I think, as she moves forward.
So the discussion here that started all of this, so this is the map that you all have in front of you. So the brown area here would be the downtown business and the downtown historic districts, and those require a conditional use permit for a new bar to move in. The blue areas are all of the more commercial type areas in the city, all of those zones piled in together that would require a conditional use permit for a standalone bar as well. And of course, the purple area that we talked about there, which is the Idaho Center, and that is an allowed use there. All of the gray area is all the other city zones where it is not allowed at all in any way, shape, or form. And then here, I also kind of clipped this out as well. This is something that's just specific to Garrity Boulevard. They're not allowed within 300 feet of the frontage of Garrity Boulevard at all. Now, again, that's one of those things where if it's already a bar and a new bar moves in, we would allow it. This would be under new circumstances if they wanted to open a new bar or build a new building that would then become a bar. So with all of that information and the maps in front of you, I stand for any questions.
So I'd like to just make a comment for council and those here. So as we really dug in just recently, what I realized was that our code actually provides us, and our process, if we adhere to our process, actually provides us with the coverage that we need. Because I think there was some confusion recently at a council meeting regarding council's ability to deny something, but the reality is we have a process in place, and any new bar that comes in has to go through a conditional use permit process. And because our code is currently where it is, we went ahead, I left this on the agenda, but I wanted us as a whole to really understand the process. I also reached out to Doug Waterman. Doug, do you have any further comments based on our discussions or anything we should be aware of?
Mayor and Council, not specifically, just for if there some confusion persists, just to clarify, there are two different interactions the city has with business that's selling alcohol. The first one is licensing itself, and that appears to have been the intent behind that was to allow the city an additional safeguard if an individual does something or has done something that would make them unfit as an operator of an alcohol establishment, then the city has an ability to revoke that. But the terms for revocation or denial of a license under that statute are pretty specific. So there could have been a situation where that was the question presented, and it could have presented some confusion. But in terms of the city council's ability to regulate beer, liquor, and wine establishments, that is fairly broad under the P&Z code, and I'm sure as time goes forward, there will be good ideas about that. Or anyway, that's all I wish to add.
Thank you. I think what's going to be interesting for us is a conditional use permit. If a bar were to come in, as they have, and we actually go through the CUP process, it would never come to council. It goes to planning and zoning, and they're going to be making that decision. And I think the question that I've talked a little bit to Christy about is, what is the criteria that we use to make a decision as to whether or not we allow additional bars downtown or in any area? Sometimes we have a proximity issue, or it could be density. How many do you have within a certain area, right? So like right here, we've got downtown. If you look on there, you've got 12 standalone bars downtown. How many is too many? Now, this does not restrict a restaurant that serves alcohol from coming into downtown at all. And I think based on the discussions I've heard, there's not really any concern over that, because really what we're trying to do is create, I mean, if we can have a great dining area in our downtown, that would be awesome. We've had recently a couple of businesses open. Mesa Taco has opened, Holy Cow. They both serve, and they're great additions to our downtown. And so it isn't that we're trying to limit a restaurant coming in. The challenge and the concern that I had was just when we have bars only, and this is in response to our young people that have said, well, first of all, Department of Commerce did focus groups with our community, and the one thing they said about our downtown is that we want a family-friendly downtown. And our young people have said, we want places to hang out downtown. So if you want a place to hang out downtown, and a majority of what's available is a bar that they cannot enter, it does not enhance that environment, both for families and for our young people. So anyway, I think the answer, though, the question is, what do we do on a conditional use permit? And so at some point, I think as a council, we're going to need to decide, is there criteria that we're going to put around it? And it isn't necessarily a discussion that needs to happen tonight, or a decision or an action item, but it may be something for further discussions. I just wanted to bring it before the council.
Mayor Kling, knowing that that there is some guidance in that, albeit through the Planning and Zoning Commission, there are some boundaries that they have to work within if somebody wanted to come forward with that type of request. So I think that it's good awareness, what you've provided, and like to think about it a little bit more. But a couple of questions for you that I had is H&M and the cigar bar that we allowed, that doesn't fall under the criteria of food sale unless is the H&M side of it tied into that decision? So, they just sell cigars, or it's whatever.
Haverfield. It was my understanding when I spoke to the gentleman that it was cigar sales, some alcohol sales, and then using H&M to provide like appetizers and that kind of thing. They're all connected, but it wouldn't be primarily H&M meats that would be sold there. So we considered it a bar, and we did require that they get a conditional use permit, and they are going through that process.
That was my other question. Was there a CUP? The other question was the craft lounge that's indicated. Is that Brick 29, or is there another bar in the basement of that?
There's a bar in the basement.
Okay, so that's okay. I need to go down to the basement. No. I know they have liquor
it's where
sales.
they used to be.
Yeah, it's where
Yeah,
the
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they sell it upstairs, obviously. I didn't know they were selling it downstairs as well.
Any other questions?
Mayor,
Any
council,
clarity?
I think if I'm hearing you right, maybe your concern is that P&Z authorization, you would like maybe council input. Is that where you're kind of going, or communicating?
Possibly. I think the process that we just went through, we realized we had some internal steps we were possibly missing. And so this process has been really good for us to ensure that we're going through the proper steps, that our communication externally to anyone that's applying, they know what steps they have to go through. And so that has been clarified. As far as how planning and zoning will rule on additional bars, it is not, I think it's just important for council to know that it won't come to council. Any decisions for additional bars downtown is actually going to be the decision of planning and zoning.
Go
ahead.
Well, the follow-up on the presentation, you said 40% of the receipts is what triggers. So we're expecting the businesses to keep track of that, and they report to us? You laugh. Okay.
Councilman Hogaboom.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point. Usually what we try to do is have them write us a letter that then is attached to the permit that they've requested, where they verify that they are the majority food sales.
Okay.
And we go on, it's kind of we trust that what they're telling us is true, that they're essentially a restaurant. If they're only giving their patrons pretzels, we will question that. If they actually have a kitchen and they're, upgrading to commercial type hoods and those kinds of things, all the things they have to do for a commercial kitchen, we tend to trust that what they're telling us is true.
Okay. I was going to suggest it should be based on whether they have a menu or not, and not keeping track of receipts.
Right.
And if they were to hit in November at that 40%, they would have to say no more alcohol because we need to get our ratios right. So, okay. Very good on that. And then one other question, more about activity, less alcohol, but what mechanisms are in place for I know some people will laugh at this, but a strip club. I don't want a strip club coming into downtown Nampa. So what sort of behavior can take place within an establishment, and what needs to be approved for that?
So that's not really a planning and zoning ordinance. That's city code. It's chapter 5 of the city code, as a matter of fact. And there are requirements for them to get special licensing. It's a law enforcement issue. So if we do a CUP for the bar portion of it, then the entertainment portion of it becomes a law enforcement issue. And they are required to be within or outside of 1,000 feet from school, church, those type of establishments according to city code. And many years ago, and I was talking to Debbie about this earlier, I seem to remember that we had a map run of that 1,000-foot buffer around all the schools and churches. I don't know where that map is. I'd like to find it or maybe make a new one just to see, but it covered a good portion of the city.
But we would have final approval? Is that what you're saying? There's a process, so there couldn't be one that would just open up that we would have no mechanism to?
Well, it's still just a CUP for the bar and then a law enforcement. There's a licensing issue again.
A licensing
with
issue.
that.
So hypothetically, it could take place without P&Z or council approval if it's a permitted activity that administratively is approved. Is that what you're saying? It's subject to administrative approval?
It would still get the conditional use permit, regardless.
It is
just-
something that we're going to research.
Okay.
And we're going to be researching during our comp plan review. We've just had that discussion this week, and we'll be looking at our code and just ensuring that that can't happen.
Okay.
So we will be reviewing that. Good
Well, I
question.
trust our administrative review if that's what it was. I'd tell Chief Huff. No, but I want to assure that that the voters have representation on an issue like that of interest of the community through the elected officials. So thank you. Yeah.
So Mayor, and the plan is budget-wise to hire a Main Street director, correct?
I don't know on the NDC.
Okay.
I'm not sure what NDC decided on
Okay,
that.
well, if we do have that type of director, I mean, and my suggestion is that if that individual is hired, is that we kind of put this into their into their, as far as a job or whatever, to maybe
Possibly make a recommendation.
advisory committee or whatever it is to downtown. Downtown, I think businesses should have a strong say in what comes in downtown. And so anyway, I would think that could be a role for that individual. That's just a suggestion.
Thank you for that comment. Okay. If there are no further questions, this was really more discussion than action, so I thank you for the input. I think it was a good discussion, and it was a good learning. I hope it was informative to the council. That was the intent here, that we had a better understanding of where we were. Christy, thank you for your work. Doug, thank you for your work. Appreciate it. Okay, we got through. We are late starting our public hearings. We're ready for Section 6 of our agenda. And the first public hearing on the docket this evening, Clay, thank you for bringing up those sheets, is an action item. This is the annexation and zoning to community business for .525 acres or 22,866 square feet. And this is for 2.24 acres also. Well, that's going to agriculture. I'm trying not to read every piece of this, but maybe I'm going to have to. So, okay. So those 22,866 square feet, it's located in the southeast quarter of Section 10T3N R2W Franklin Tracts Plot C at 0 North Franklin Boulevard. This is a zoning map amendment from agricultural to community business for 2.24 acres or 97,574 square feet located in the southeast quarter Section 10T3N R2W Franklin Tracts Lot B at 1414 East Karcher Road for Dean Anderson. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval and variance of Section 1016.4, which was the building height regulations for the community business zoning district, allowing a proposed apartment building to exceed the 30 feet allowed building height by 9 feet for peak height of 39 feet for 90 luxury apartment buildings at 0, 0 and 1414 East Karcher Road. This is for Dean Anderson. Is our applicant present? Good evening. Go ahead and come forward.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Excuse me, I will be recusing myself from this one, and I'll sit with the audience.
You'll sit with the audience. Okay. Bruce, thank you for being upfront with that. I appreciate that. So, because we have a number of public hearings, I want to start by saying the process that we're going to walk through, most of you have walked through these processes before. We begin with the applicant, we follow up with a staff report. After that, we will open it up for public testimony. Following public testimony, we give the applicant the opportunity to come back and have any comments, and then we will close public hearing and deliberate as a council and then vote. So, Mr. Anderson, thank you for being here. Go ahead and state your name, your address, and who you're with.
Okay. My name is Dean Anderson, and my address is 3875 Twilight Rise Way in Meridian. And I'm here to represent myself and a project on the corner of Franklin and Karcher.
Thank you. Okay, so what should we know?
Was there pictures included in the presentation? Did you people receive some pictures?
Mm-hmm.
If not, okay. Anyway, I want to start out by thanking everybody for a project that you approved a couple years ago. It's called the Orchard Lofts, and it's right behind the Chevron station, just off of Orchard Street. And we got it finally done in January and filled up in April, and our neighbors are very, very happy, and we're very thankful for the city and for all their work and planning and zoning and all the help we received. So the new project is for 90 units. We'll probably start with 38, and I'm not sure exactly what I should be going on through for this. I could wait for the staff and questions and then maybe have some answers at that point.
That would be fine if you'd like to. You are more than welcome to. Go ahead and go through staff report, and then we'll come back with any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council, Rodney Ashby, Principal Planner for the city. This one's a little bit complex. There's a lot of moving parts on this one, so I'm going to try to take you through that process and just outline each of those requested actions. So this is the parcel here. I've highlighted it in blue here. I'll go into a little more detail. Annexation and zoning to BC for a portion of the property, and I'll highlight that in a minute here. Zoning map amendment from AG, or agricultural, to BC community business, and then the variance request. The City of Nampa's Planning and Zoning Commission approved a conditional use permit for multifamily housing in the BC zone, and that BC zone is conditional upon your action tonight for annexation and then the rezoning. Then the purpose is at the bottom here for a 90-unit luxury apartment complex, the Franklin Lofts, and those displays are in your packet tonight. So we'll start with the comprehensive plan. The comp plan shows it as a general commercial area. Again, I've highlighted it, but also light industrial on the western side of that property, of these properties, I should say. And let me zoom in a little bit there. So you can see this is a Bruce Skog Law Office here, some residential homes here, and a couple of other uses I'll get to as we move through. But as you can see, the BC zoning, or the general commercial designation from the comp plan stops right there, and then we have the light industrial on the side. So now we'll move to
Mayor Kling. Quick question, Rodney.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to read on our, is there a connection point from the back portion of this proposed property? Yes.
Right
Is that a right-of-way that exists today? Is it a road right-of-way?
That is a shared roadway, driveway, and they will be improving that as part of their development so that it'll be ingress and egress. Currently, it's just, I think it's just egress.
Okay, thank you.
So Rodney, that goes to Skog, by Skog Law, correct?
That's correct.
Then, okay.
That's on the east side of Skoglaw, right?
Yes,
Okay.
correct. Yeah, this is the Skog Law offices right here.
And Councilman Haverfield, was that the question that I missed that you wanted to ask earlier? Or we'll come back to your question if it was different?
No, I had some other questions I was going to ask the applicant as far as what their intention as far as on the height of the building, and that's why the BC zone request, and that would lead on to the fire department asking what they can actually fight a fire down there with, so.
So at the conclusion of Rodney's presentation, we'll have him come back and answer that question if need be.
Or, yeah.
Only if need
Or
be.
maybe Rodney can address it.
Yeah, I'll try to highlight as much as I can. Just quickly, that ingress egress right there would need to be widened to 20 feet for the fire access back to that property.
How wide's the easement now?
I don't know. That will be a question for the applicant, but it's
Okay.
less than that.
So would they have to purchase property?
What's it, 22? Okay, so 22, but the improvement is in the full 22. Is that correct? Yeah. So I don't think the roadway is the full width that needs to be expanded, but the easement is there for it.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on to the zoning. Just a general sense of what's going on in the zoning. You can see a lot of different uses in this area. That's perhaps what makes this one a little bit more complex. There's quite a few different zoning districts in the area. The ag there, the enclaved area here, light industrial, residential, RS district, commercial, business commercial. There's a lot going on in this area, and it makes it a little bit complex and challenging. So let's see, again, the annexation and zoning is this parcel here. I've highlighted it here. Annexation and zoning to BC. It's an enclaved area currently. There is a little sliver right here of, you may have seen that in the description, that is actually right of way, and it just needs to be zoned and annexed into the city as well. So that's the first one there, 1.56 acres. Okay, and then the next one is the zoning map amendment, and and I've highlighted it here in blue. It's all around that green area, which is the ag designation, zoning designation to BC. It's 2.24 acres. And then last is the variance, and that includes just the property. I should have highlighted this before. This is also some right-of-way for a future roundabout at that intersection. And so the actual area that they're going to be improving is cut off at this point nearest the intersection. And we'll just rezone this so that it's all consistent. So again, this is the variance request for these two parcels here. And I've highlighted in green the variance, the reason for the variance. Just these sections right here. It's because of the this property abutting up against a residential zone, an RS zone. So when that occurs, they have to go 50 feet back from the property line. Code requires 50 feet back from that property line before you can exceed the height limit of the residential zone. So I want to make sure that's clear. It's a bit confusing. So this residential zone requires 30 feet or 2.5 stories. So because of that, any property or any development on this property or this property here would have to go back 50 feet before they could raise above that 2.5 stories or 30 feet.
Okay, so Mayor, just clarification, I think, what you just said. So if for whatever reason, we do not allow the extra footage height-wise, then they would only have to have a 30-foot clearance from the residential properties. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, they could go up to 30 feet.
Height-wise?
Height-wise.
So what's as far as, what would be the not 50 feet then, they'd have to, what's the footage?
So
if they don't go to the requested height, if they just go 30-foot high.
They could go just a typical setback.
Which is what?
Property, which is like 5 feet or something, plus the easement, if there's an easement of any kind. So it's not a great distance.
So it's a big difference then?
It would be a big difference for this
the
development.
height, okay.
Yeah. All right.
Mayor, then for clarification purposes, abutting residential, the BC zone allowance of something taller is superseded by the proximity of the residential.
That's correct.
And maybe you'll get to it in a minute, but the images that were being shown are 3 stories plus the height of the roofs. Is the top of the peak of the roof the 30-foot limitation is to, or is it mid height of the plane itself? I mean, where do you measure?
It's the peak of the roof.
Okay. So that would be restricting it probably to a 2-story.
That's correct.
All right.
And the proposed development is the 3 stories and 39 feet in height.
So how does that play with what you just said about the residential proximity?
So that's why the variance is being requested.
Okay. So that's going to be the issue. Yeah. What is, when you talk about setbacks only being 5 feet, this would be a commercial development, even though it's residential in nature. Wouldn't there still be a 20-foot plus setback for landscaping required?
So 20 foot is near the right-of-way, since these areas wouldn't be right on the right-of-way.
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't be required, but near this, it would be the 20 feet. That makes sense?
Yeah, well, it doesn't. We used to have solar ordinances here in Nampa, and that kind of went away.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have shadows being cast by large structures over smaller structures, it's a bit of an issue, but if you can get some separation, there's less of a concern, but
Sure.
That's not what's being requested here.
And I should state, too, that the building code requires a certain setback, as you're aware,
Mhm.
and so that may exceed that 5 feet, depending on where the other building is located.
Yeah, if they want any openings in the wall for windows or doors, then they're going to have to be at least 10 feet.
Mayor Kling. So tell me again on the egress and ingress of the Skoglaw property. Explain that to me one more time.
Okay. So currently, the Skoglaw, I think I've got an aerial, see if I can zoom in The aerial shows that Skoglaw can, this is their ingress right here and egress back here. So we've got the the width here to provide an ingress and egress, but currently there are pavement markings, and I think there's signage as well showing that this is only an egress on this property right here. So again, you come in this way and you exit here. So the development would need to expand that. If there's more pavement needed or whatever, they need to expand that to be at least the 20 feet required for ingress and egress and for fire access.
Okay, so this road, or this, I won't call it a road yet, is going to be secondary road, exit and entry into the subdivision. Correct?
Yes. And the actual access to the parcel is going to be about right here.
Right.
That's on your some of the drawings you received in your packet. Yeah, so that will be your primary access, and then this will be secondary.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Are there any other questions at this time?
Mayor Kling.
Yes.
Rodney, the 22-foot wide section of dirt there that a 20-foot wide section of pavement will be put on, that leaves very little as far as landscaping buffer. Is there any landscaping buffer required along a common drive like this? Again, abutting a residential on one side, a commercial on the other side, but
25. Okay, so you're saying the easement is 25? Okay, property width is 25 feet. There has been a request for a fence along that, and the applicant has agreed to that, and Skoglaw has requested that.
what about the property owner to the east?
To the east.
And maybe they're here to speak, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so they, again, that would be up to you for some of those conditions that you could place on this property, but I believe that the applicant, that's another question for the applicant, but I think they had.
Well, no, it's a question for you as a planning and zoning staff member. What is our requirement for landscaping of a road like this abutting a residential property that's going to be used by quite a bit of traffic? Yeah, putting a fence up is one thing, but usually we soften that with a little more separation.
Yeah. So the difference here is that this is a private roadway, and so because it's a shared private roadway, there's not those same conditions as if it were a public roadway.
Okay.
So, Mayor, if I may, so private roadway. So this is a private roadway owned by who?
This is owned by the applicant.
Okay, so Skoglaw or none of these?
Pardon me, the property, let's see, I believe that the property, let's see if I can reach back. Right here, I believe the property is actually the Skoglaw property. Is that correct?
So the driveway, the exit lane for Skoglaw is on an easement owned by the property owner for the apartments.
Okay.
The blue outline here is the ownership, Mr. Anderson's ownership.
Okay, so Daniel, what I'm getting at then, and who currently uses this driveway?
Currently, I believe the only users would be Skoglaw and any access that might come back in for the current uses back.
Okay, so only two parties, the owner and currently Skoglaw. So as long as they're getting along, otherwise Mr. Anderson could close it off to Skoglaw since he's the property owner, right?
I believe there is an easement a recorded easement in place that would prevent that.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right. I thought maybe there were more uses for that from other property owners, but sounds like no. Huh? Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I'll continue. Land use is primarily vacant land with one single-family home here. North is enclave residential, light industrial buildings and uses, landscaping business, and vacant land. So again, the vacant land, industrial, and some vacant home. South is storage of vehicles, shipping containers, shop, some residential, Skog Law offices, vacant land, and then I also included this gas station across the way. East is vacant industrial land. Then there's Milliken Heights subdivision. This doesn't show that very well. Here's the Milliken Heights subdivision. And then to the west is 2 single-family homes, Enclave small office building. That one is right there, I believe. That's the small office building. And that's vacant land and zoned IL. Utilities, there's a 12-inch water main in Karcher Road and Franklin Boulevard. There's an 8-inch irrigation line in Karcher Road, 10-inch in Franklin Boulevard. A 15-inch sewer main in Karcher Road, and an 8-inch sewer in Franklin Boulevard. Again, the access would be off of this northern section of this property. And you can see that there, I've highlighted it. This would be the secondary access here.
So Mayor, if I may, just another question. So what's the closest proximity of another multifamily complex of this sort? Or is there another one in the area?
Across the street.
Not in,
Across the street.
Birch is so right, not pretty close then.
not in the immediate area.
Okay.
Well-
BB, so it'd be north of this area then.
This one here.
There,
Oh, right there.
So I mean, I don't get that way much anymore. So we're talking about, is that a quarter of a mile or prox? And is that a 2-story structure or do you know offhand, Daniel? Okay.
is there anything else? Go ahead.
So, real quickly, we've had 2 property owners write into planning and zoning and just express their opposition. The first one was Thomas Schaefer. He owns the property.
And these are both in our packet, so if you want to look at your packet, you don't have to go into a lot of detail, but they're in our packet. Yeah.
Yeah.
But where is their property located?
Their property, they jointly own this property here. And then his sister is the second one that wrote us, and she lives there. So that's Branton and Tony Ann Wirtz. And basically, the second one there, I just wanted to highlight, they argue that there's not justification for a hardship in this situation, and they argue that their privacy would be impeded because of this development. Compass provided a development review report. There's a lot of information there. I've summarized it on the screen here, and it's in your packet there. Nothing to oppose it, but just saying that that there's a lot going on in the area and that they don't anticipate the traffic will significantly be impacted by this development. Idaho Transportation, no comments. Nampa Meridian, no comment. Engineering had several conditions. They do not oppose, but had several conditions, and they are stated there on the screen here. Mostly it's your standard conditions. So staff findings are that it's contiguous to the city and in an enclaved area. The proposed zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and it's an infill development, which our comprehensive plan encourages. That's for the annexation and zoning. Zoning map, it's in compliance with city code and state regulations for zoning, rezoning. And then variance, it's necessary because of 10.16.4. I want to point that out because on the notice that was published, it showed 10. I think it was 10.6.4, and so we made that correction there. It's 10.16.4 for that 50-foot setback. The area has a variety of zoning districts that do not appear to follow a clear vision for the area and make it difficult to follow the proposed land use in the comp plan. And the applicant argued that the zoning district in the area is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan because of that. And it's hard to develop these properties because of the diversity in the area. Setbacks and height restrictions, however, are in place in our code and are intended to protect residential development that exists already. And so it is the council's decision and purview to make that decision one way or the other. But if council does choose to approve this, these are my recommended findings for annexation and zoning. These are in your packet. And then recommended findings for zoning map amendment and the variance. Again, I'll just highlight that the variance requires that we find that there's a unique circumstance or hardship. And then suggested conditions of approval are listed on the screen if you wish to approve this. And I've placed each of the 3 requested actions before you, and then the areas, so if you have questions. Happy to stand for any more questions.
So Mayor Rodney, so this is segmented in annexation, zoning, and variance. So any 1, 2, or 3 of those could be approved or disapproved?
Correct.
Okay.
Question, Mayor. The property owners that have expressed concern, it looks like 1 or maybe both are in the county. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, they are enclave.
So I just have a question. The county zoning, does it conform mostly to our zoning requirements? So for example, if they wanted to put a 3-story apartment complex on their property that's within the county, would they have to conform to similar setback? That's if they weren't seeking annexation. Would they be allowed to do that within the county?
I don't
Maybe
know
that's
the
something we
exact
can.
Conditions
Okay.
there for the county, but typically in this scenario they would have to be annexed in because of the availability of services.
Yeah.
And so I think the county just defers to us in those cases.
Okay. It's just, we've gotten a few of these. Well, obviously an annexation request means it's in the county, and sometimes the neighboring property owners who've expressed concern live within the county, and I'm just curious what the requirements are in the county compared to our city code for the setback requirements. But all right, thanks.
Okay, are there any further questions for Rodney?
Mayor?
Yes.
Rodney, question for you. So it's currently, they want to change the zoning to BC community business, correct?
Correct.
From agricultural? Or
From
the,
agriculture.
Okay. But if I understood correctly, on our future land use, it shows it as general commercial and light industrial.
Correct.
What do you see it as a better fit?
Hard to say here. There's so much going on this parcel. You know, community commercial is typically seen as a transition between the industrial and some residential designation here. So I guess I would probably state that that seems to be a good fit because of that. It's in some ways it's a buffer.
Mayor, may I continue, please? I guess my question I have is, are we wise to give up light industrial? Because my day with the county assessor, he talked about and stressed the importance of manufacturing and light industrial.
Yeah.
And that's what we need in a city if we want to help with the taxes and be most effective with the taxes. So when I see us giving up potential light industrial, it raises questions in my mind.
Mayor, Councilman Levi, that is a great point, and we've thought about that a lot in planning whether we should advocate for keeping industrial designations. I will say though that the comprehensive plan is intended to be flexible, those boundaries, and so perhaps you could argue that that this parcel up here could be developed as industrial. You could extend that boundary for industrial in that area. So very valid point. But again, we kind of default back to the fact that these comprehensive plan designation boundaries are intended to be flexible.
I understand that. And my final question would be, and perhaps maybe I need to ask the applicant, but you could give me some guidance.
Okay.
So the definition of the unique circumstance or hardship, I'm struggling to find how this fits that.
Yeah. So I think I put in the staff report that you may find that the situation with all the zoning in the area creates a unique situation. But again, I think that that's up to the applicant to argue their point there and for the council to consider all the situation and make their determination.
Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you, Rodney. I think we'll move on to public hearings at this time, and then we'll have the applicant have the opportunity to come back and address the questions and then any other questions that might come forward. So we do have two people signed up. The first person is Stephen Buckley. Stephen Buckley, are you here? Hi, come on up. So in the public hearing, you have 3 minutes, and please state your name and your address and your comments. Thank you.
Stephen Buckley. My address is 1206 East Karcher. And I didn't write in. I just kind of wanted to come in and actually get to know what was going on. Can I ask a question about this? Because I'm not sure exactly. If the variance is allowed, then this apartment building will be 50 feet from my, or 39 feet from my house. But if it's not allowed, a 2-apartment building will be 5 foot from my house. Am I getting that right?
I will let staff answer that question.
So the variance simply allows a building to be placed within that 50 feet buffer that typically would be required by city code. It would allow it to be in that 50 feet, but still with, it would have the setback, the traditional setback that you're going to be required. I don't know what the exact distance would be in this case because of building code, but probably somewhere around 10 feet from the property line, and it would allow them to exceed the 30-foot maximum height within that 50 feet.
So without the variance, it would be a setback of 50 feet. To answer your question, I want to make sure I understand. If a variance were not approved, there would be a 50-foot setback, and the building height would be limited to 30 feet. Is that correct?
So they could only go to 30 feet from the 10-foot to the 50-foot distance.
I was thinking height.
Yeah.
So you're talking,
So
we have
I'm
two
saying
issues. Height, does the height change with the variance?
The height, the variance allows the height, the 39 feet that the applicant has proposed, to come with closer than it would typically be allowed to that property line. So typically, code would force that property line, or excuse me, a 50-foot setback from the property line before they could go 39 feet. However, if they wanted to, there may be a situation where you go 30 feet, and then you go out to the 50 feet, and you go 39 feet. So I don't think that's likely in this scenario, but that's a possibility.
So Mayor, bottom line, this is where I was trying to get to before, and I want to make sure you understand. So my understanding is still is if we allow the variance to go up to 39 feet,
That's correct.
right? There's going to be more of a distance than if we don't allow it and he just builds 2 stories or whatever, goes 30 feet, he can be much closer to this gentleman's property, is my understanding.
So just, let me restate it just to make sure I understand you.
I think that's, yeah, I heard you say no, so let's
Okay, so
clarify.
I think
it's not clear.
one more time.
So the property.
Let me just do this. Do 2 scenarios. If we allow the variance and we go 39 feet, how close can he be to this gentleman's property?
Okay, so variance, if the variance is allowed, that setup that you see before you would take place. If
What
the
is that,
variance is
though?
approved. So it's, I don't know the exact distance, the applicant could help me with that. Do you know the distance from the property line? 15? Okay, so 15-foot setback from the property line here and here. So, and in this case, it would be here because there's a residential property over here. Yeah, that would be his. So the 15-foot setback would be allowed to go 39 feet high if the variance is approved. If the variance is not approved, code says they can only go to 30 feet or 2.5 stories. So you would cut that down to a 2-story building.
And then how close can he be then to this gentleman's property?
It would
Line.
still be very similar in this situation. It would same location, just only 30 feet. 30 feet high.
Okay. So you're looking,
You're looking at a
30 feet.
15-foot setback
Yeah.
with a 30-foot height is what is, without the variance is what it will be. Is that
Rod,
correct?
Mayor Kling, question for you. Where'd the 39 feet come from?
That's from the applicant?
That's what they're requesting.
Yeah.
They could actually go more than 39 feet, though.
Well, their proposal is for 39
Right.
feet.
But that's why I'm wondering where the 39, it's not a code requirement. If you're allowing unlimited height or whatever it might be, you're not limited to 39 feet.
That's correct. That's the applicant's height of their building.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so this is a public hearing. We've kind of gotten away from your 3 minutes, so we'll let you come back, though. And did you have any further comments or questions?
Other than I agree with the two that wrote in, privacy, that's about it.
I'm so sorry, say that again?
The other two people wrote in.
Okay.
One that's wrote in. I just chose to come down and say that.
And you agree with their
Privacy, yes, ma'am, I agree with
privacy? Okay. Thank you for,
Thank you.
I mean, is
Mayor
there a
Kling,
question?
if I could.
Okay, just a
Mr.
moment.
Buckley, why don't you come back for a second? So will the height difference make, is that a big decision for you, whether it's going to be how high it's going to be or how will it affect your property?
Sir, I'm not 100% sure. I haven't seen it visually, so it's kind of hard for me to really picture. My wife and I have driven around and looked at some 3-story apartments, trying to get an idea what we're looking at across our fence. It is a little opposing. I'm not sure exactly what to say on it because I don't know.
Okay, all right.
Mayor Kling, and where's your property located?
It's right there.
Okay,
The other two are on this side.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the other person signed up, and these were both signed up in opposition to, and this was Tina Buckley. Is Tina here tonight? Did your wife come? She had to leave. Okay, so we have 2 people noted in opposition, but she wasn't able to stay. Okay. Thank you. So we don't have anyone else signed up in support of or to oppose. Mr. Adrian, would you like to come forward? And I'll let you go ahead, Adrian, and state your name, your address, and which side, if you're supporting, opposing, or just commenting.
Yes, so my name is Adrian Castaneda, and I live at 7708 Arlington Drive. Neither opposing or for it. It's actually more of just kind of general questions, and primarily it's more, my questions is more about relating into the growth of Nampa as with this particular property, and a lot of my questions has to do with especially the entrances and where they're currently located. So based off of the documents that I looked over, the primary items that I was wondering is, has there been any form of a study of what the particular traffic increase would be occurring with this property sitting right here near the intersection? As I saw through the CIM 2040, there was discussion about potentially increasing the Franklin Road to essentially 5 lanes, and with the potential roundabout, that's pretty close to the roundabout. So I was wondering, is there a discussion about potentially how are people going to be turning into that particular property past the roundabout after that's gone into 5 lanes, because it's pretty close. And so that was primary one of my questions for the applicant for that. And also because that would be essentially the primary method, I noticed that ITD didn't really make any comment as far as to the amount of traffic. I drive down this road pretty much daily, so the majority of the traffic actually tends to be along Karcher Road and on the south side over with the Maverick on that area. So I've never really seen quite as much traffic coming in from the north side down. Typically it's the people who are trying to get off the freeway to get out of the way. And so that was a little bit something that kind of surprised me. I was actually figuring that the road on Karcher would actually have ended up being the primary entrance, but from the sounds from here, it sounds like it would essentially be the alternative. So if that's the situation, I think those were primarily my concerns, is if, as far as the future growth for that area, especially if it's going to be 5 lanes, has that kind of essentially been taken into account? And especially with this property so close to what would be a potential roundabout, I don't know of any other roundabouts that are currently in Nampa that are that close to a high-density area. And I think that, wouldn't this be the first roundabout that would essentially be closest to the freeway? I think it is. So I'm guessing it would probably have the highest amount of traffic. So those were just my general questions.
Those are really good questions. I appreciate you asking them, and it does beg the question, was there a traffic impact study? Did we discuss that? We had 90 units, and I don't remember the exact number of occupants per unit. Actually, you should come forward. Sorry. Yep. Thank you for coming to the mic. Adrian, thank you very much.
Mayor, Council, our traffic impacts policy requires a full traffic study for 100 or more units. Between 40 and 100 units, the development is required to look at their approaches on the roadways and analyze whether or not turn lanes are necessary in those areas. They will be required to do that with their development application. It's not something that's required for the zoning and annexation actions before you. But when they submit their building permits, that would be required, and we would review that at that time. We have had our consultant who is working on the design of the roundabout at that location look at the approach locations, and they have signed off on those based on the design criteria they have for the roundabout, and so that's why we were not opposing those locations.
Thank you.
I have a quick question there. So northbound on Franklin, to turn into this proposed development, they would just be turning left on that left lane of the two?
They would be turning left. I believe there is a center turn lane at that location.
There is? Okay.
And they would be utilizing that. If at some point in the future the traffic there became such that that was no longer safe, we would look at restricting that to right in, right out. But that would be some point in the future if that became an issue.
Gotcha. So there's already an existing center turn lane. I just forgot.
I believe
right there.
that is
Okay.
correct. You can.
I think there,
No? Maybe that's what you're referring to as the median turn lane.
Yeah, I don't. There's not a good picture of that. Which one?
Yeah.
It's not zoomed in close enough. Let me.
Is that, so a question, so you could find it on Google Maps very easily and actually just pull it up and answer the question. The question I have is that critical to your decision-making process? If it is, then we
Well, as
should. do our
perhaps a
Google Maps.
condition of approval, I don't know if that could be put on, that they would have to dedicate, what you're saying is that would be a further.
So Councilman Hogelbaum, I apologize. There is a turn lane at the intersection. There is not a turn lane up where that approach would be. However, if their analysis at the time they did their building permits showed that that was warranted, they would be required to install that at that time.
And that's an administrative decision. That's
It's based on data and their standards for when those turn lanes are warranted, and they would have their engineer doing that analysis. We would review and approve what they submit.
Mayor Kling, one
Yes.
more. So Daniel, so what is the distance between or from the roundabout or the intersection to the entrance into this proposal?
So from the center of the current intersection to where their proposed entrance is, it's approximately 250 feet.
Now, do you think that's going to hamper one way or another with the roundabout there, or?
As I stated before, our design engineer, Keller and Associates, that is designing this roundabout, has looked at that as we were doing our right-of-way negotiations, and there were no concerns raised with
There
the
wasn't?
location.
Okay, thank you.
Has there been, I guess, I want to trust the data and stuff. At the same time, I feel better with dedicated left turn lane coming out of that roundabout, especially with the ongoing development that's going to be occurring on that side of town and the trips that will be made coming out of that roundabout.
I understand your concern. One thing to remember is that they will have a secondary access back here on Karcher, that if that does become a difficult movement to make, I would anticipate the cars would come around the roundabout, come and then just make the right turn in without needing to cross traffic at that point.
It would be a nightmare to back up into the roundabout. I guess that's the only fear I have, but I'll trust the experts.
Yeah.
I guess. Okay.
Mayor Kling?
As I say, plus Scott's getting a lot more visibility that way too, Scott.
And I would echo what Victor was, I was going to ask the same question as far as queuing and distance as far as for southbound traffic away from the roundabout. My thoughts are eventually that that secondary access will be the primary access, not the secondary. So that's where I'm concerned as far as with the landscaping buffer, if there's going to be one or not, along that corridor into that section of the property. Because I think in time, you're going to find, if not already are considering with your consultant on the roundabout, the distance factor is going to be an issue with that primary access point, I would think. And just general layout of the development, it seems a little awkward, but that's just me. But it's an awkward piece of property.
And I know there are certainly site constraints on this one. The width of the existing parcel here that drive aisle will be in order to get the width necessary for the two-way traffic, that'll limit the amount of dress up that they would be able to do along that.
Well, two-way traffic is not 20 feet. And I think you haven't pointed that out yet. That'd be at least 24 to 25 feet wide.
A two-way drive aisle under the code-wise 20 foot is the minimum.
Okay.
Without parking on either side.
That's true.
Just
You
two-way
eliminate the
traffic.
parking.
Yeah, if there were parking stalls along that, then they would need a 24-foot drive aisle.
It's going to feel awfully narrow and long, so, sorry, I didn't mean to.
That's fine. Okay, so we are still in an open public hearing. And was there anyone else that had intended to testify that has not had the opportunity to do so? I believe I see someone standing. Bruce Skog.
Bruce Skog, 6866 West Roxy Cove Court, so you now have a council member on the north end. So, thank you for your deliberation on this. I have spoken with the new owner of the property. I've owned this property in front since 2006, and I used to own the property directly behind Skoglaw, which I sold some time ago. This has been one ugly weed patch for a long time. The weeds get up to 4 feet every summer, and we call weed control, and then they finally get mowed. Now, this is the fairly new owner, and they just got mowed recently, but it's a fire hazard behind us and back in that area, and that's the best that this property has been. The roadway ownership, we have to agree between us on that. He's already agreed, I'm putting him on record, that I get to name the private roadway, and so that's a big deal to me. And that's a mistake. But we're going to come to agreement on fencing and any landscape if necessary, and we have general agreement on that already. The roadway is not entirely owned by the new owner. When I sold it, I made it so whoever comes in there would have to negotiate with me on the width and the asphalt. That is good asphalt in there that'll take a fire truck. It cost me a fortune to put in a long time ago. So we'll have a good roadway when it's done. Let's see. Yeah, I'm in favor of this. He's built good apartments by Nampa Christian. Nampa Christian Schools, their old location, is happy with him as a good neighbor. They're quality apartments. And I have one staff member that wants to be his first tenant. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that had intended to testify on this item tonight? Okay, seeing none, this would be an opportunity for our applicant to come back and provide response to the different comments and questions that have come forth.
I'd like to, I know they've seen some pictures, but I have a couple here of the exterior to show you why we want the height and some of the landscaping. I don't know if you've been by the new project, but the landscaping is really spectacular.
Will you put it up there, sir?
You can put it on the visor.
They won't show, that won't show it?
Let's try it.
Is that the same that's in our packets? Yeah, it shows up.
That's good now. That's good.
Are these the new ones on Orchard and,
Yeah, they're near the shelter.
right near the shelter, right? Okay, thank you. It looks a lot better than that old house and nothing but trees over there.
The old house, we did save the old house. It was a beautiful home, and when we bought the property, it was advertised as house to be torn down. So we fixed up the house first, and we put a lot of extra money and energy into the decor on the outside and the wood and the landscaping. On the variance also, we had the same concern on Orchard Lofts. The people there was a couple spot zoning there of residential. The people were quite concerned about it. One of them was Nampa Christian. And all the neighbors at this point are very, very happy with the project. They like the landscaping, they like the stone and the colors and everything. We're going to do exactly the same project. We're going to put in the same landscaping. We had 2 to 5 ton rocks put in, trees, 25, 30-foot trees. So we're not going to spare any expense to make it a quality project. Let's see. If we were cut down to 2-story, of course, we would be cut down to 33% less units. And I do think that the appearance of the buildings are made for 3-story. They're beautiful buildings, and I don't know if we could do the project, to be honest with you, at a 2-story. I'd like to make it open at this point for questions from the...
Mayor, if I may, my main thing is these 2 residences that
Yeah.
that have been there for years.
Yeah.
So from your plan, how far away are you going to be, do you plan to be from these 2 residences?
About 15 feet.
15 feet
But we have
is all.
beautiful landscaping on the backside. We told the one applicant or the one concern that we would put a solid fence up. These show a metal fence, and
Yeah.
they're more expensive.
Let me ask, though, these being the three stories.
Yes.
So 15 feet, we're looking straight down on these properties.
Well, the one in the back's probably another 60 feet away is home, so it's quite a ways away.
Quite a ways away from, as far as the home itself is quite a ways away, is what you're saying. Okay.
Could I ask another question? Is there no other option than to, I mean, do they have to be as close as 15 feet, or for some of them, can you move them in just a hair?
We might be able to.
It's just a thought.
Yeah, Mayor, that
Because
was, oh, sorry.
But the property is really unique and difficult to work with, so it's been a real challenge.
Yeah, I had a follow-up question. Maybe Randy could help on this a little bit too. I was wondering, I noticed garage 1, garage 2, how high are those going to be?
Okay, we're not having any garages.
Okay, so those are out, that's just open parking? So I'm guessing building 3, which abuts the property, that's why there's a variance included, and I'm also sympathetic. There's a swimming pool right there, and 15 feet's about as far as me to Daniel Badger over there. To think of 3 stories up, looking down on me swimming, and family in the back, I have concern about that. Why not move building 3 over to where garage 1 is? Is it because it's? There's a swimming pool right by building 1 and by building 3. There's a little bit of an opening there in between the two, but.
I don't believe I've ever seen that swimming pool, but I guess it is.
There was one in another picture that I saw, but would there also be a variance request, Daniel, if they were over there because of the properties to the north?
Away from that swimming pool, according to the map.
Okay.
Probably 60, 70 feet.
Okay.
Tried to place the buildings in the best place possible to stay away from our neighbors and also have some type of traffic flow.
Okay. And there would also probably be a request for a variance, even if it was up near garage 1, because it would be, is the variance only if it's abutting residential and not, okay.
Yeah, that's
so he would be okay to go up there without even asking for a variance because of the industrial to the north?
Yes.
Yes, but you've got other variances that would be requested.
Yeah, to the gentleman, okay. Okay, that's, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councilman Haverfield?
I want to commend you on the work that you did next to Napa Christian. It turned out really nice. Really did. At the sake of, I want to follow up on what Rick was saying, but as an architect, I have a tendency to nitpick sometimes somebody else's thoughts a little bit. But I was following the same line of logic that Rick was mentioning, that it makes sense to me that building 3 would not be, since the primary opposition is to the south of you, that you could easily move that up to the diagonal where garage 3 is somewhat indicated there, and your flow would actually be more along the southern boundary of building 3. And even, I think there's room for configuration changes here that would allow this development to be even more pleasing from my standpoint. But again, I don't want to, I'm not your architect, so. But I think that would be something that would be sensitive to those property owners to the south, and would be probably a part of a recommendation that I would support. And as it is right now, I think that the proximity to the residential that's still there, we need to honor that, even though they're not Nampa residents, they could be soon. So anyway, I have a concern along with what Rick was saying as far as just that general proximity there with building 3 more than the balance of the development.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Anderson or staff? Okay, Mr. Anderson, thank you so much. So this has been a public hearing, and if we are done with our questions, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Council discussion.
Well, I am concerned with the other properties and what it will do to them properties. Also, but I have another question though. Plat approval, we can change that, correct? Or we either way approve it or not? If
Rodney, answer that question. Well, I
It
think
is-
we could still ask staff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. Are we still allowed to ask staff a question outside of public hearing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mayor and Councilman Rodriguez, so this would not be in a plat situation because it's owned by the same property owner, the entire thing. So there's nothing.
Oh, I see.
There's no subdivision at all.
So if we approve this, then they can do whatever they want with it,
Well, they have to follow the.
besides the guidelines, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
So, before you sit down, Mayor Kling.
Yes.
So what was being proposed was 39 feet to the peak of those buildings or to the halfway up the roof plane, which is common? Very top.
Peak.
Okay. Because allowing and I guess that would need to be a limitation and understanding if it's approved that that's what they're requesting and they can't go beyond that. Because otherwise you could even go taller if we're allowing the variance.
And you could place that condition on it.
All right, thank you.
So, council?
I'm kind of waiting for the architect down there to make the motion.
Where'd the attorney go? Oh, he's sitting in.
He's asleep.
Well, I'm honestly conflicted just because of the proximity of Building 3. I'd feel better if it was, and I know that's why the variance is requested. Want high-density housing, I know there's a huge demand for it. This meets a market demand. I understand that's why the variance is being requested. I just see other property line. I'm not an architect, so I don't want to pretend to tell you what to do with the development. I just feel better if that was elsewhere. I'd also feel better if there was a dedicated left turn lane on Franklin in the median, but I will trust the administrative process and review of that. I'm just really struggling with Building 3. I guess that's where I'm at right now. I'm not a no or a yes, so we're in deliberation right now.
So one thing I'm noticing as I'm looking at it is that if the access were behind the building instead of front of the building, it would be moving it up. The same would be true of Building 5
right.
And 4. If you had parking behind the buildings, you would achieve your distance from your property boundaries. So it's food for thought. I do appreciate the investment, the work, the quality that is being proposed, and the access to the freeway. There are a lot of positives with this particular development. Having the opportunity, it's going to be an improvement to what was there. But as we all discussed, there's the sensitivity to the existing landowners. And so if the opportunity were there to create the landscape buffer and move your access and parking to the outside versus the inside. But I'm sure that is a challenging design. I don't know. So, I think. Okay. Building 3 is the one with the little red, and then Building 5. This one, I think that we had a gentleman here that lives by Building 5, and since public hearing is closed, we can't really discuss again. But those were 2 buildings that I believe the proximity was a question.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. I too want to say thank you for your beautiful project by the Nampa Christian School. I have heard wonderful things about it, driven by there, and I know Nampa Christian's very happy with that. I do like infill projects, and this is a beautiful project. However, at the same time, I do have concerns. Just to reiterate the things that I've already stated was one, giving up light industrial when I know light industrial and manufacturing is what our city definitely needs for the tax base. But I also look at the traffic concerns. And while we have experts who are going to be reviewing that and making the decisions, I know that we have very busy roads, such as Eagle Road, that was configured differently than it has actually turned out, and it's congested beyond what most people can even imagine as we're driving down Eagle Road. And so I also ask myself, are we being proactive in what can transpire and will probably be transpiring as our city is growing, and we put a roundabout in, we put an ingress egress right there, close enough in proximity to a major intersection. And then my overriding consideration is, again, the privacy. We have existing property owners that have enjoyed their property, and we have to look out for them, and we have to appreciate that. I do also appreciate what Bruce Skog said, that, you know, it was a weed patch before with the previous owner, and to have something done back there is very appealing, especially to the business owners. But again, I have to really side with the existing property owners and take that into consideration.
I have a question for staff since it's allowed. What's the requirement on 90 units for parking spaces? You know, or rough. You don't know that? Oh,
180 spaces.
180.
Two per unit.
That's I'm just struggling with the unique hardship based on the proposal. If again, I'm not an architect, but it seems like Building 3 could be moved and you still get the same amount of units with meeting the parking requirements. Or,
Since it's a,
Yeah, we
since
closed
we're,
it.
since we closed, these discussions needed to take place
the admin,
during
yeah.
public hearing. So unfortunately, public hearing is closed. So the only thing we could do would be make a suggestion or have a requirement. If we did approve this and move forward, it would be with requirements, and then the applicant would have to determine if he could fulfill that requirement. I'm thinking, would that be correct? So you could put conditions upon an approval if you felt strongly about it, that he would have to say, yes, I can do that. If he could not do it, then what would the process be, Rodney? Could he come back if he could not do it?
He'd have to start over with the full
The process,
Mayor,
which would be lengthy.
so I have a question for legal.
Mhm.
The requested action before us is an annexation and a zoning request with a zoning map amendment and a variance. We have been provided with a schematic layout, but in reality, that's not a part of our decision tonight. Is that correct?
Mayor and Council, it's a part of the decision for the variance.
It is?
Well, the variance is specifically asking for a change in allowed building height. So,
But that, is it site-specific? That request for a variance, I mean, is just more of a decision that we're going to either allow or not allow, and then he can place the buildings in any other arrangement. It's not, this is just a conceptual plan.
right, the granting of the variance will not lock that layout into place. It's simply allowing a 39-foot building to extend closer to the property line.
Right.
The specific location of it would be something that would be worked out with staff.
So if they had not brought in this site development plan, and we just went off of these three action items, we would have either yes or no based upon this information, not on that.
Yeah, yes. If the record contained fewer items, then the decision would be based on what was contained in the record. The decision as to what to put into the record is the applicant. To make your case is one that's left to the applicant. But if an item wasn't in the record, then it wouldn't be part of the decision. But since it is, then it is contemplated in the decision.
Well, our decision would have been more based upon what setbacks we would require, not where building 3 would be. As
Yes, the variance is for building height, not building location.
Right.
The building location is relevant only to the extent that the proposed buildings are taller than 30 feet.
Okay.
So may I ask then follow through on that, or you?
That's fine. My clarification is, it's pretty generic in this form. That made it more complex, because now we're starting to, and people are like that. They're gonna, when they see something, then they either appreciate it or don't appreciate it, and they're gonna come up with questions and need answers.
Yeah. And Mayor, mine is a legal question from what you said. So we are allowed to put conditions on where parking is to be, on what side of the building and so on? I didn't think that was even a part of this.
Probably not.
So that's, at least in previous hearings, we've not been allowed to do that. So I'm a little confused.
So under City Code 1024-3, you are allowed to place conditions of approval on the issuance of a variance. The conditions have to be to improve or mitigate the situation involving the variance request. So your conditions would have to be related to and mitigating the increase in building height.
So it has nothing to do with how close they're going to be to a neighboring.
Yes, that's the subject of the variance.
Is residential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I may, as an example then, if we were to say as a part of the variance request that we would grant the variance request in portions of the property but not all the property, is that?
It's just the variance on those residential, right? Properties? Are we? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Mayor and Council, it's my understanding that you could grant the variance
all or in
with,
part?
all or in part, a condition of it could be that the variance doesn't apply to a particular area.
So as an example, then building 3 in this schematic, being that it's abutting a residential, if we were to state that, no, we're not going to allow the variance for that portion of the property line, building 3 could easily then be moved to the opposite side of the lot, which is what we're talking about. That's just looking at the variance in its written form, not in its graphic form. So that gives the developer the potential for amending this concept map or concept site, which I think sometimes gets a developer in trouble when this type of detail comes before us and we're either granting or not granting based upon something. But then at times it's important that we understand the true nature of what they're wanting to do. So I think there's room for some flexibility. There's, I think the concern that's been raised, though, that's a real concern, is access. And the amount of traffic that's going to be generated in and out of this development, I think is going to move more traffic to that secondary access point, which 20 feet wide with fences on both sides are going to feel awfully narrow, running up and down in there, especially if you have service vehicles, whether it's trash or whether it's a fire engine moving up there. It's going to take the whole lane width to get in and out. So that was where my concern was to begin with. When I saw this development, it made more sense that the primary access point would be there, but that's not where it's being proposed.
Mayor?
Yes.
If I might, just kind of point of clarification, because I don't want to confuse those listening, especially developers and applicants in the future. We've had several cases where you've come before us and asked for a variance or annexation, whatever, talked about your development, and it's been stated up here in question that, well, if we could have seen the concept, that because we're visual, we would have appreciated it more. So I want to kind of clear the confusion up so you don't beat yourself up and figure that you shouldn't have brought all this detail to us, because we would have probably asked you for it.
Just a follow-up on the legal. If we granted the variance, you said they're not bound by what they're proposing here, even though the building height and the setback is the subject of the variance request. Hypothetically, they could have 2 buildings up there if we granted the variance, right? They can come back and propose to put 2 buildings because the variance would cover going up to that height throughout the entirety of the project, right?
Yeah, so Mayor and Council, the specific action here and the item that your approval is requested for is the zoning change and the variance. It is not the layout. You could place as a condition of the variance to help mitigate the granting of the variance in terms of its negative effect on adjacent property owners, some condition as to like linear feet of building frontage adjacent to residential properties or something like that. You can place a condition on it as long as the condition is related to the hardship or negative effect of granting the variance. But the specific action for the variance is not related. You are not approving the site plan beyond the fact that you're approving some building extending above the height requirement on some portion of the property that's closer than 50 feet to a residential neighbor.
Okay. So the amending part of the motion would have to include like linear feet abutting the property, something of that nature, is what you're saying?
It would not have to. It was an example of the type of condition that would be specifically mitigating the negative impact of granting the variance on neighboring properties.
Otherwise, they would be restricted to just 30 feet on that proposal, building 3, even though I know we're not approving the schematics. They can still go up to 39 feet if it was outside of that. It wouldn't require a variance.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so just the clarity, so the variance is only related to any buildings that are on the perimeter of the property within less than 50 feet for a 39-foot.
Abutting residential.
Abutting residential. And there's really only 2 properties, both of which have been here, because we're talking about the one property we're looking at, but we had an applicant give testimony here tonight that is a property owner on a different portion, that's immediately reflected. So it would be more than one area that we would
Be
want
building
to.
5 too, yeah.
Right. So it'd be a condition on buildings set adjacent to residential property. Would that be the correct way to word that?
That is what the variance is for. If you wanted to, the condition could be whatever particular language you wanted. Does that answer your question? I apologize.
Well, I was just the clarity that really this whole discussion is around any buildings that are adjacent to residential property. We have 2 of which that have come in and spoken, and so it would be possibly increasing it from 15 feet to whatever feet setback if it's adjacent to residential. Am I understanding that correctly?
So my understanding from the presentation from staff from planning and zoning is, well, actually, I'm not going to delve into it. I'll let staff, if no variance was granted, a building would be allowed closer than 50 feet to the property line, but it couldn't be 39 feet tall.
Correct.
But in terms of the distance to the property line, there's some control here, but only as it relates to that building height. If the choice was made to have the building be shorter, then the building could be brought all the way to the property line with whatever setback is required. But the variance is specific because it is residential, because they want to be closer than 50 feet, and because the building is higher than 30 feet.
And my understanding in listening to the applicant was that if it were less than 39 feet, he may not want to build that because it's.
This would be
Okay.
a 1/3 reduction, but the other buildings could still be 3 stories, even though it wouldn't look weird. Yeah. I know it's getting late. I'm thinking of a motion. I want to grant the variance, but set a limitation to try to get a win out of it, maybe a 20 feet setback, which they would still need a variance for 20 feet because it'd still be within 50. If you don't grant the variance, they could do a 2-story, 30 feet, 10 feet closer to the neighboring property. So I'm trying to get him his 3 stories, but also push them further back than what 2 stories would be allowed without the variance. So I'm trying to craft the motion in my head right now.
While you craft, can I ask
okay,
a point of clarification? What is the setback required with no variance? That is something that it's a must that we're
5
accurate.
feet was thrown out, 5 or 10.
10 feet.
5 or 10 feet.
They get a lot closer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's going to help us determine.
Yeah.
So because it's against residential, it's a 10-foot setback.
Even though it's multifamily, multiple stories, it's only a 10-foot. Okay.
As long as it's not higher than 30 feet.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, one more question, Mayor, if I could, over here. Stay there. So one of the reasons why, and let me get this straight, is in order to remove or place Building 3 up against, closer to the residential, is to comply with the parking. Is that in play here or not?
I'm not sure I understood.
Well, you have to have so many parking spaces for each building. By going farther, closer to the residences, is that giving them more space to comply with the parking spaces that we needed?
I believe the applicant, I just talked with him briefly, and he believes that the 20-foot setback rather than the 15 would still work. This is all kind of conceptual because he hasn't put it down to an actual plan.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, he would have to meet our conditions for parking at that time. The applicant is presenting a concept based on their idea of traffic flow and parking. But if council wanted to set a setback requirement of 20 feet from a residentially zoned district, these 3 districts, you can see 1, 2, 3, then you could do that. You could also put a requirement of landscaping, which I know he's already planning on doing, but that's something that you could consider.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mayor, Council, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the request for annexation and zoning as listed under section public hearing item 6.1, and also grant the variance. But however, one of the mitigating factors within the variance is to have the setback of the residential at 20 feet. Still needs the variance because it's within 50 feet, but I'm going to push them back another 10 feet from what they would otherwise be able to do without the variance. So I think this is the best compromise I see in this situation. So that's my motion. Yes, with recommended conditions.
With all the other conditions, right?
Yes, with all the other recommended conditions, but I'm placing in the motion the additional condition of a 20-foot setback within the variance.
Second.
So it's been moved into seconded. Is there any further discussion? Councilman Haverfield?
I was thinking along the same lines. I was thinking 25 feet instead of 20. I was thinking about half of the requirement. We want to be sensitive to the adjoining property owners. I think that's important. But along with this, I want to support the recommendation that was already given to us by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I think it's important that we honor their time. And I was wondering if they had spent as much time on deliberating as we have. Probably not. Okay. So,
we're slower.
Yeah. So I think the logic was one that I was following and crafting in my own mind, but 20 would work.
I came up with 20 because I saw a head nod that 20 was okay, and 20 was mentioned by Planner Ashby. And I was thinking to grant 9 feet up, we're pushing them 10 feet out of what they would otherwise be able to do. So that's.
And Mayor, we can't dictate it, but I still would strongly, if there's any way we can work it where the parking goes on opposite sides of those areas. I realize that's your decision, but for the sake of these landowners, I would just really encourage if that's possible.
And again, I just follow up with the 20-foot minimum. 25 is even better, but 20-foot, at least it allows you to stagger the landscaping. Whereas 10 feet, you're pretty much just a row of trees. At least you can stagger and put more shrubs and such in. So that's what's an opportunity with a wider easement or landscape easement there.
Okay.
Okay. We've got a motion second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Levi? No. Haverfield?
Yes.
Gruner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah, that was a short public hearing, right?
Okay, so that took us about almost an hour and a half, and we have 6 public hearings yet to go. So I apologize. The good news is there's considerable thought given to the outcome, which is great. I appreciate that. I would like to suggest that we get through one more public hearing before we take a break. So
Is this going to be an hour and a half?
If we could do this in
you know what? How about
That's good.
It'll help. So let's go to action item 6.2. Thank
Yep,
you.
thank you.
Thank you. This is a comprehensive future land use map amendment from low-density residential to high-density residential at 525 East Greenhurst Road. This is a 2.90 acre parcel of land, and it says tax 3, tax 5, tax 6, lot 3, Aslan subdivision in the northwest quarter, section 3, T2N R2WBM for Gavin King, and the Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended denial. So is the applicant present? Is our applicant present this evening?
You have seen him?
Was he here?
I haven't seen him. Oh, I thought maybe somebody had seen him.
We've notified
them, though. He rang his doorbell, didn't he?
Daniel's checking to see if they're
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So if the applicant is not present, staff report?
Mayor and City Council, Doug Critchfield, Senior Planner. I have to enter into the record this evening a letter that we received from Jack and Margot Lutens. That we received this on Friday, so if I could enter that. The project, or the request from the applicant that we have this evening is for a change to the comprehensive plan future land use map from medium density residential to high density residential. This parcel is 2.91 acres, and it is in an enclaved area. It's on county property. General information about the location. The area that this is located is a medium density residential land use setting. There is high density residential land use settings located on 12th Avenue. I'll use this screen this time so we can not break your necks of the council members here. Where's the pointer on this? The trigger. The trigger? Underneath. Oh, okay, here we go. Thank you. So 12th Avenue Road right here. There's high density residential land use settings adjacent to public and parks, and in this area. This is the location of the parcel right here. On the next slide, there's a little closer look at the specific setting for this site. The future land use map shows this as being surrounded by medium density residential. Also, the River Oaks subdivision is to the west, and the Stone Ridge subdivision is to the north. To the east is county enclaved, and to the south is property that's zoned RD, which is two-family residential. Just for your reference, there's a zoning map in the report that shows the type of zoning surrounding this parcel. In the Stone Ridge subdivision, this is RS6 zoning single family. That's a planned unit development, a little bit smaller lots. And then the RD zoning to the west in the River Oaks subdivision, and then the RD zoning to the south. The correspondence that we received on this project to date is in your packet. We did have this go before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended denial of this request, and citing the incompatibility with the surrounding land use settings. Other public agencies had no comment on the project. We did receive 4 letters as of the date of the staff report, with the additional letter that I submitted for the record this evening. The findings is that this is, because this is an enclave parcel, it's an area that we're interested in developing. However, it is surrounded, again, by medium density residential land use setting in the future land use map. The requested action would open the door to high density zoning, residential, which would be incompatible with the adjacent land uses. And that the Planning and Zoning Commission, because they recommended denial, citing incompatibility around the medium density residential land use setting that surrounds the property, we recommend that you move forward with the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission. We'll take any questions at this time.
Councilman Haverfield.
Doug, just a quick question, just for clarification purposes. The request is for a comp plan amendment, but doesn't include an annexation request.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing, and we do have 2 people signed up. Is Susan Saint here? Okay, but Susan, it's noted that you're in opposition of the proposed change in the comp plan. Thank you. And is Wynette here? Wynette, would you like to speak? Okay, so, and you have been noted in opposition? Okay. And I believe you said we have 4 or 5 different, we have 4 letters in addition to these 2 that are in opposition. Okay, with that, the applicant is not here. Is there anyone else, before we close public hearing, that had intended to testify on this matter in favor of or in opposition to? Seeing none. In that the applicant is not here to do any type of rebuttal, do we have any additional questions for staff? Okay, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So move.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, council discussion.
I'll make the motion, Mayor, that we deny this comprehensive plan future land request.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
You guys waited a long time for that, but thank you. Okay, so shall we get through one more, or do we need a break?
Let's do one more.
One more, okay. Item 6.3 on the agenda is an action item. This is a zoning map amendment from limited multifamily residential to light industrial for a 2.38 acre or 103,000 square foot portion. And it's exactly 103,673 square feet at the northeast quarter of the northwest quarter of Section 23 T3N R2WBM, located at 1504 Garrity Boulevard, for Dean Lonnie Monson. The Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended approval. Is the applicant here? So is the applicant here for our zoning map amendment for the Garrity Boulevard property? Okay, that's interesting. So, staff, for the staff report, did anyone have contact with the applicant?
Yes, we contacted each of them, and they were made aware of this.
Okay, and that was via phone, not an email?
I think it was both phone and email.
Okay. It does, as we know, it does make it very difficult to approve something if the applicant's not here, even though planning and zoning approved it, but.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion before we go any further on this, to postpone this until the applicant is here before us and make a decision then.
And we would do that because we could do that if we left it open, correct?
My understanding is that yes, you could postpone to a date certain in the future and continue this at that point in time.
My own view on this, if you're interested.
Okay, we would be.
Is that it's a fairly clean-cut proposal.
Yeah.
And
I
they
agree.
came because they thought it was a slam dunk. That doesn't justify their not being here. It
Okay.
may just delay you and build up more complications at later meetings.
Yeah.
That's why I say that.
And Norm's been around a while.
Yes, he has.
Okay. So, Councilman Rodriguez, I need the clarity. Was that a recommendation or was that a motion?
I made a motion, but I can always recant that motion, correct?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's do that. I don't usually like to vote on something when the applicant is not here. But if it's okay, I will remove my motion, Mayor.
And Mayor, there's no guarantee, though, the applicant would be here next go-aroround either, wouldn't think.
That is
but,
correct.
Yeah.
They probably would if they realized that.
Well, if it's going to be not
Yeah.
approved, yes.
Yeah.
If there was a little.
I think it is, and I can't speak fully for the council, but it is my understanding that it is the desire of the council that staff communicates that if they want it passed, they need to be present, unless they communicate to you that there's a hardship and they cannot be here. So please ensure that staff is communicating to the applicants that they may forfeit in the future.
We do that in our action letter from the commission as well as a phone call and an email.
Okay. Thank you.
I appreciate Mayor, Councilman Rodriguez's concern in affording like a due process, but I think it's a case-by-case basis, so I don't want to take a hard rule on this. This was property bought from the city of Nampa, and they just need to make this adjustment. So I don't want to say how I'm going to vote right now, but I'm okay with proceeding on this.
Thank you. Okay, Councilman Haverfield.
I'll make the motion to approve the requested action of the zoning map amendment to from RML to IL.
Do we?
We have to, we still have
So
public
we-
hearing.
We gotta have the hearing.
Hearing, yeah.
Right.
Okay, sorry.
So,
I jumped the
that
gun.
said,
My motion stands.
Keep an open mind. Keep an open mind. We can
Do
listen.
you want me to say anything before you?
no.
No.
Unless
already
there's,
done.
unless there's something more to add than what's in the packet.
We're good.
All right.
So that said, this is a public hearing, and we do not have anyone signed
Someone
up.
can speak. Yeah.
We do not have anyone signed up to speak in support of or in opposition to this particular request. Is there anyone in the audience that had intended to speak on behalf of this item? Seeing none, with the applicant not present, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Council discussion?
Can we second, or does he have to make another amendment?
Let's-
I'll make the motion again.
Thank you.
To authorize the, well, I have to go back up now, requested action of the rezone as presented to us this evening.
Second. Yeah.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Other than this is a good example of moving from residential to light industrial. So this is
Exactly.
good. Yep.
Yes.
Very
And
good.
supporting a business that's
Yeah,
already
a
there.
business and being, yeah, very good.
Okay. Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
I'd like to go ahead and move to item 6.4. This is action item, a vacation of the southerly 10 feet of East Sheridan Avenue, which is adjacent to a number to be determined at East Sheridan Avenue. Lot 12, Block 62 at Kurtz Addition. This is a 6,276,000 square foot portion of Lot 12, Block 62 of the amended plat of Kurtz Addition, lying in the southwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 27 T3N R2WBM for Carrie Little. Is the applicant present? Thank you for stating your name and your address and sharing with us about your project.
I am Kerry Lytle. My address is 523 West Edwards Avenue, Nampa. And this property was purchased over a year ago, and there was an existing building which kind of infringed on the lot that I would like to build a duplex. And to provide a second off-street parking spot, I need to have vacated 10 feet from the right-of-way. For driveway and parking only, no building, no.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions while the applicant is here? Okay, thank you.
Sure.
We will move to staff report. Who's our staff on this?
Christie.
That would be you.
Talking to the lovely Amy. Sorry about that. Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. Christy Watkins, City of Nampa, planner. So, the requested action from you tonight is either approval of denial of the vacation of 10 feet of the right-of-way on East Sheridan Avenue to allow for sufficient space for a second off-street parking space for each of the living units, dwelling units in the proposed duplex for that lot. It is currently a vacant lot, but is zoned RML, which is limited multifamily, so it would be, duplex would be allowed. The comp plan is high-density residential, so the RML zone fits perfectly into that. The surrounding land use zones are RML and RS6, single-family residential. Believe maybe it's on a different slide. So the findings of fact, our parking code states that the 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit be provided, and the applicant proposes a duplex attached by 2 single-car garages. So 1 space would be inside the garage, and then 1 space would need to be in the driveway. The proposed concrete pad that creates the driveway encroaches into the right-of-way. By vacating 10 feet of the prescribed right-of-way, it allows enough room to provide for that second parking space to be completely on-site and not encroaching into the right-of-way. The city does not maintain any utilities in this portion of the right-of-way, and the existing 80-foot right-of-way, according to engineering, exceeds the required local road right-of-way by more than 20 feet. So on the maps that we'll look at, you'll see how wide this right-of-way is and how much it actually cuts into the lot. The surrounding uses are all residential. 3 out of the 5 adjacent corner lots, so that would be diagonal and across the street, have been split to accommodate 2 single-family dwellings. One remains single-family in its entirety, and the one directly north is already a duplex. So the applicable regulations for a vacation public hearing fulfills the due process requirements of state code for vacating right-of-way for an easement. We did get some correspondence back from Idaho Power and Intermountain Gas just asking that their existing easements be protected. This area here, as you can see by the bubble, proposed parking spaces to be vacated is this area right in here. So the proposed building is here. The garages would be in the middle attached by the common wall, and then the concrete pad is here providing the second space. So the requested action from you tonight is either approval of denial of vacation of that 10-foot right-of-way. The motion to approve the 10-foot on East Sheridan Road with all conditions of staff, and I will stand for any questions.
Mayor Kling.
Yes.
So, Christie, East Sheridan Avenue will be the frontage?
Yes.
Okay, so access, the setback requirement off of the new lot line, as it suggested, would still be 20 feet?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And so Elder would still have a 20-foot separation as well, landscape separation, or would that be less since it's a side street?
Actually, the side setback in a residential zone is 10.
10.
The side street setback.
Right. So I guess the disclosed frontage street would be Sheridan.
Yes.
Okay.
And I know it's hard to see behind the little red example here, but this red line, the lighter red line, is the property line as it stands now. And then this area right here, if I can draw straight, that's the actual curb line. So you can see how far in the property line sits from the curb line, which is that extra right-of-way that they're saying for a local road really isn't always necessary.
And as a follow-up, then the property to the west, I guess that's west, to the left. There is no other property owners that have come forward asking for the same consideration at this point?
Not at this point, no.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions for Christie at this time? Thank you, Christie.
Thank you.
So this is a public hearing, and there was one person signed up in support of, and that was Mr. Kerry Little, and we do not have anyone signed up in opposition. Is there anyone in the audience that had intended to speak on behalf of this issue tonight? Seeing none, Mr. Little, do you have any further comments that you, no? And council, do you have any questions for Mr. Little? Okay, seeing none, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Council discussion.
Mayor Kling, I've seen Mr. Lytle's work on houses, and I definitely in support of this 100%. So I'll make a motion to approve the vacation of 10 feet of right-of-way on the south side of East Sheridan Avenue with conditions of approval by the staff.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Okay, so we have 3 public hearings left, and I'd like to ask the council, do you need a break? Because we've been at it for actually 4 hours now, 3 hours almost since we began. So I apologize for those waiting, but we are going to take a brief break. We'll try to be quick, and we'll be right back.
Getting numb after that third hour.
Good evening. So this is annexation and zoning to light industrial at 16261 and 16285 and 16317 North Madison Road for 4.02 acres. And this is for lots 1, 2, and 3 at Block 1 Madison Acres, situated at the southwest quarter of Section 10. For Alder Industrial LLC, represented by Kent Brown. The Planning and Zoning has recommended approval. And Kent Brown, thank you so much for your patience. I'm sorry that we've had you wait so late this evening. But our applicant is here. Would you like to tell us what you're doing?
So for the record, my name is Kent Brown. I reside at 3161 East Springwood, Meridian, Idaho, and representing the Alder Industrial. I'm not sure that you're necessarily aware, but Mike Alder made a large purchase and bought the Van Auker properties, and now he's in control of their facilities and is making plans to build a lot of buildings and move forward, even improving on the reputation that the Van Aukers have had. This was discussed prior to the purchase, that this needed to be annexed. They own the surrounding properties, Mr. Alder does. And it is all light industrial, and we're just trying to bring them all to be the same so that we can put some kind of project and move forward with some kind of application to the city after annexation.
Mayor, so is it Alder or Adler?
Adler.
Adler, okay. So I thought maybe it was misspelled here.
No, it is Adler. And I'm glad he's not here to hear me say his name wrong.
So much for that good client.
Yes. I can't even talk to say his name.
I'm sure he's listening live to the live.
Yeah. He had some of the same feelings that you did on your hour-and-a-half meeting to go, why can't this be a little more clearer in that meeting? And we sat for a time to be what I think hopefully should be less than an hour-and-a-half in this application. Thank you.
I think it will be. Okay, staff report. And unless there are a lot of questions, you could kind of feel free to move quickly.
Yep, I sure will. For the record, Rodney Ashby, Principal Planner, and I'm going to go quick. Got the annexation request before you. The staff reports outlines the details of the size of the parcel and the area around it. The Go-Go Squeeze is here, and then there's, that's Go-Go Squeeze there. And then all around it is farmland that is planned to be a part of a larger development. And so when we get to the access and utilities and that kind of thing, keep in mind that we don't have to get it directly to these parcels that are being requested, but it's the overall development that you would want to look at for access and utility. Again, it's zone, or the area is zoned IL, and that's being requested as well. So it's definitely an infill project, and you can see the aerial there. There's the utilities, primary utilities of sewer and pressurized irrigation are to the north in Birch Lane, and then water along Madison. Correspondence, the Nampa Planning and Zoning, as you stated, recommended approval. Nampa Highway District had no comments. Engineering had their standard requirements for on-site wells and septics to be abandoned, the water rights turned over to the city, and then utilities taken to the property and through the property. Recommended findings is that it's an enclave area. It's reasonably assumed to develop. Zoning conforms with comp plan. Requested annexation and zoning to IL from the property owner. And then recommended conditions are those stated by engineering. And this is the action before you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, and there is no one signed up in support of or in opposition to this application. Would our applicant, do you have any further discussion? Nope. Hearing, council, do you have any questions that need to be addressed before we close public hearing? Hearing none, I stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
So, council discussion, I just want to say something. This is the kind of development we need, and I'm thrilled. We need the annexation of the enclave piece, the light industrial, this is the kind of development we need in our community. So thank you for your assistance with it.
Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to go ahead and recommend that we accept the request for annexation and zoning to light industrial in case number ANN 124-19, including, were there conditions of approval?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Pogabum?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Mr. Brown, I'm so sorry you had to wait this late for this, but thank you very much. We appreciate your work.
I've been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah,
Most efficient council you've ever been to, right?
Well, Cam Brown, you just ought to put yourself here and find an office area.
I think I had 3 items on your
Next one.
agenda tonight that were.
Oh.
Oh.
Thank you. So I don't see any other, Clay, I don't see any other public hearing sheets. Were there any other sheets back there for public hearings 6 or 7?
I don't see 7. Do you have 7?
Well, I'll just ask the question, but, oh, I just found them. I'm sorry. Okay, so we've got. 6, 7, okay.
You know, I've been looking at Daniel all night. Can somebody help him with his collar? Oh, maybe somebody has. Oh, okay, thanks.
What a way to end the night. That's funny.
Yeah, it's like just kind of that
Yeah, but who-
windblown look. Yeah.
Okay,
I know.
so this is item 6.6 on the agenda. This is an action item to approve the sale of surplus property that is 2,481 square feet located at Elijah Pathway near South Happy Valley Road and set a minimum sales price for the property.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. A few months ago, you would have seen this particular item as it was declared surplus property. And so that's the first step of selling property, is declaring it as surplus. The council has already done that. At this time, this is the public hearing, and we're just recommending, it's this piece of property right here. We're recommending selling that through auction. The type of auction it will be, it won't be open cry, but it'll be like we'll have an advertised date and time where they'll submit a bid or an offer, and it'll be sold to the highest offer. Beth helped us determine the property values, quite a difference. This property value per square foot that's adjacent is $468 a square foot, and that's assessed value. And then this property right here, the assessed value is $1.52 a square foot. And so quite a difference, but also these other properties are closer to the $468, some more per square foot. And so it's our recommendation to that we sell this piece of property. It was deeded over as the development occurred and a pathway went in. The pathway's already in. This is simply just an area where we have to provide maintenance, and so it's not usable to the city. It's just a cost for us. And so at this point, well, we'd throw out maybe perhaps an average of those two, sell the property for a minimum, set a minimum on the property for $3.10 a square foot. Of course, you can see that it's not a buildable lot, has some limitations. And so, but certainly that's open for discussion.
Could I ask you how you came up with that price? I'm coming in the middle because the other that is $1.52, and this is absolutely not accessible. So when we're increasing that square foot price, how did we decide to just split it in the middle.
So this particular price right here is $4.68. Just the particular
I'm just
land.
thinking,
And then this land right here was $1.52. It's just an average of those two pieces. But certainly that's open for discussion, the value of that land. Whether the city council wants to suggest the minimum higher or lower. If we don't get any bids for the property, and then what happens is we can just go out on the open market and negotiate a price. So if there are no offers.
Mayor?
Yes.
Darren, so you said it's not really buildable. What would be the purpose? One of the landowners on either side might acquire it?
This property owner right here, we have not talked any kind of price at all, but they have expressed interest in adding to their land.
Thank you.
And that's why when I asked the question, actually, I was doing the math just at $1.52 a square foot. Because it's not accessible ground, and yeah, they'll just keep it mowed, hopefully, but
Certainly, we're open to whatever the decision is on from the mayor and council. That would just be the minimum price that we would set, and it would go to the highest offer.
Mayor, and for clarification, it's just the area defined with the red lines, is that correct?
That's correct. It has been in your packet. It has been surveyed, and so the exact location there. The location is Happy Valley, and just south of that is Locust Lane.
So just for clarity, the action item is to approve the sale of the property and set a minimum price. It is a public hearing. Do we need to be setting a sales price prior to the public hearing, or what is our process
I think
around
we can
this one?
set that minimum because what we'll do is advertise it. If the council is agreeable and they decide after the public hearing that they want to sell this piece of property, we can attach a minimum price to it. It'll be advertised as such.
Okay. So,
Go ahead.
thank you. My thought was, it is a public hearing. I don't see anyone here. We have one person that signed up in support. Her name is Sammy Sosa. I don't believe she's here. I don't see any public here at this time. And so with that, I'm going to just ask, is there anyone here that had planned on testifying on behalf of or in opposition of the sale of this property?
So Mayor, can we?
Are you wanting to do it under the public hearing or staff report?
Mayor and Council, either way.
Okay, go for it.
I just wanted to share a little bit on the methodology for the evaluation I worked with Darren on. I essentially used this exact same methodology that Union Pacific used in valuing their corridor. So when we looked at purchasing the Stoddard Pathway, it was an evaluation of all of the properties that were adjacent to that corridor, recognizing obviously that's certainly not a buildable lot either, but that was kind of the recognized methodology for how to evaluate the property. Because you could certainly argue it has next to no value, being that you can't build on it, but it does certainly have value in some way. So that was the method.
Thank you very much. Okay, Councilwoman Levi.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just wondering in general, perhaps Darren, you would know, has this always been City of Napa's property? Was it given to us by someone? Did we acquire it? Did we put taxpayer money into this piece of property?
No, and so according to the pathway development plan, when a subdivision is platted, if it's on the master plan, they're required to deed and dedicate enough space to build a pathway. And so we just ended up with that particular piece of property. So, yeah, and Daniel might be able to share some more.
So, Mayor, Councilman Levi, this is part of the Royal Meadows Phase 4. And so the property boundary that the development had ran like this up here and then over, and the lots were there. The pathway itself, because of some issues down here, the pathway, we chose not to continue it out to Happy Valley this way. We had them bring it in, and it came up out to the roadway here and then out to Happy Valley. And so this piece just ended up as a not a piece that was added into the pathway lot, though we didn't really need. So we did not pay anything for that lot. It was just dedicated by the development.
Okay, I was just wanting clarification on that because I didn't want our taxpayers thinking that we were just kind of picking a price and it maybe wasn't worth the investment.
No, there was no investment by the city in this.
Thank you.
Okay. In that we are the applicant at city staff, and there is no one here to speak on behalf of the public, I'd stand for a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, council discussion.
Mayor Kling, I'd make the motion to allow the sale of the property at the stated amount of $3.10 a square foot as proposed. And then, obviously, if it's not sold, it can be then put out on the market.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Just one question. What sort of costs are involved in publicizing the sale? So if we were to have this minimum, which I seconded, and it didn't sell, what kind of cost is incurred in
We'll advertise it and then just staff time and legal's time to draft a sales agreement. And so we've done it before, so.
Okay.
So Mayor, Darren, what's the percentage for the auctioneer?
So we won't be hiring in, it'll be, we'll run the auction kind of like a sale bid. And so there'll be an advertised time and date.
Okay, so
they'll come in and it'll be a closed envelope and then we'll open up and
So they submit it, I'm just curious, who do they submit the bid to, then you?
Yes, yeah, we'll have an advertised date in place for it.
Okay, great.
It'll be open to the
I like it, thanks.
Sounds like Darrell is interested. Maybe.
Oh, yeah, my wife kicks me out, I need a place to pitch my tent.
Another place to mow. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Our final public hearing for this evening is an action item. This is to adopt and approve the 2019 Annual Action Plan. This is to authorize the mayor to sign for submittal of the City of Nampa, the CDBG 2018 Annual Action Plan to HUD.
Hello, Mayor.
Hello, Matt.
Council, how are you? Matt Jameson, city staff. So yes, as we're wrapping up our annual action plan process, we're here before you tonight to have you, approve that and then authorize the mayor to sign so we can submit to HUD, hopefully by the end of the week. Just as a quick reminder, all of this pretty much represents what we allocated in the previous special council meeting. Since that time, we've had an open 30-day public comment period, which was required by our citizen participation plan. We had an additional July 9th open house to solicit additional public input. As of today's meeting, we've received no additional comment. So as of today's date, we have our existing allocation, with the exception of some additional funding that we have through closing out of old programs, things coming in under budget that we hadn't anticipated. We've ended up with more money than anticipated. That is the only difference you'll see on this from the original special council meeting. And I'm going to let Beth talk a little bit more about the reallocation of the prior year's funding. And then I think otherwise we're all in agreement.
Mayor and Council, when I spoke with you back in June, we talked about the potential of having up to $100,000 of leftover funds, and you gave direction towards a small amount towards a park shelter, and then the rest towards the sidewalk program. Well, it turned out we had twice as much as I thought we would. So given that there was such a large amount, we thought we'd ask council if we could go back and instead of putting more into some existing projects to create a separate new project that would be dedicated toward downtown slum and blight activities and create kind of a larger bucket. There was a significant sidewalk projects, 2 of them from Public Works through the application process for the corners of 13th and 12th Avenue and 1st Street in downtown. We're also in some discussions that I'd emailed you all about previously about some sidewalk improvements that might come forward. So we'd like to just hold that 172 into a general bucket for downtown Summit and Blight activities that would be eligible then for, obviously we would come back to council with a very specific project, a more refined cost estimate and design work from engineering that council would approve that funding for. But if we stick it in this general bucket in our action plan, we don't have to go back through a 30-day process to amend the action plan. So that's what we're proposing for those leftover dollars, I guess, from previous years that we haven't spent that need reallocated. So, any questions on that?
Mayor Kling. Beth, so would that be like graffiti or whatever? And is it geographically just the downtown area, or is it broader than just that downtown core?
Mayor and Council, we have a slum and blight designation through HUD. It's a specific HUD designation for the 3 downtown districts. So technically, by sticking it in this general bucket of downtown slum and blight, it could be eligible for any project between Northside and 16th Avenue. Our focus, obviously, is really more in the historic core district. So really looking at some of the sidewalk needs in particular.
So from the tracks, how far south?
4th Street.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Beth, thank you. Feel free to just stand there for a minute. And that this is a public hearing, and I don't have anyone signed up in favor of or in opposition to. Is there anyone here that would like to testify? Did we already do this? No, that was the last one. Thank you. On behalf of this item this evening. Seeing none. Are there any further questions for Beth or regarding this before we close public hearing?
One point of clarification, Mayor, it looks like there was a slight typo on the action item. 2019 is referred in the first sentence and 2018 is referred in the second sentence, and it should be 2019 in both.
Thank you for catching that. I appreciate that.
And if you do approve the action plan as submitted to you in Matt's memo with that 172 in the slum and blight piece, you will not have to do your unfinished business item 7.1. So it'll be taken care of within this one action.
You should be up here all the time.
Okay, so I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, council discussion.
Mayor Kling, I'll make the motion to adopt and approve this 2019 action plan as proposed to us this evening with the adjustment of as far as the action item as it's presented to be 2019 annual action plan to HUD.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
That concludes our public hearings for this evening. The next item on the agenda is number 7, our unfinished business. And I believe I just heard us say that we do not need to address item 7.1. Is that correct? Okay, because we just dealt with that in our last one. The next action item, 7.2 on the agenda, is first reading of ordinance for annexation and zoning to RS6 single-family residential with 6,000 square feet at to be determined High Avenue for Mark and Alina Condra something for the construction of single-family homes.
In order to determine that certain lands commonly known as the unaddressed parcel of High Avenue, approximately 130 feet west of North Joseph Drive, comprising approximately 0.84 acres, more or less, lay contiguous to the city limits of the city of Nampa, county of Canyon, state of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed into the city of Nampa, Idaho, as part of the RS6 zone, declaring said lands by proper legal description as described below be part of the city of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the city of Nampa, Idaho, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith, providing an effective date, and directing the clerk of the city of Nampa to file a certified copy of the ordinance and map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, state of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63215.
And this is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Section 8 on the agenda are pending ordinances that are postponed due to lack of supporting documentation. And last item on the agenda is our executive session. And actually, we Bruce, would you like to make a motion?
Madam Mayor, I refuse to go to executive session tonight. It's just too much. So I'm saying we're not going to go.
Okay,
What
so
do you think?
so you would move that we do not adjourn into executive session this
Yes,
evening?
that's my motion, if you're in agreement.
I am in agreement.
Well,
Is
I
that seconded?
absolutely second that. Go home and eat some dinner and watch a movie.
Okay, and roll call?
Rodriguez?
I thought you'd go down.
Yes.
Bruner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Vogelboom?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
I've never heard that before.
Okay, and so we are at the end of our meeting, and I would stand for a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.